Good evening. I'll call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. A little more snow out there. So first item, any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? All right, we'll go as published. Any public comment? Nope. First item is consider there's a zoning violation and a recommendation that we hold off on any action. Mitch, are you in on this one, or no?
I'm aware of it.
Okay,
But
all right.
Basically, I think the information provided should be sufficient.
Okay, so we did have a couple of memos or
Yeah,
report, I think, on the violation, and then a recommendation from Alex that we hold off on any action.
Yes. So this is for a property at 1174 North Road, and a notice of violation was issued by the zoning administrator for an unpermitted sign and home occupation contractor's yard. So the owners of the property, Arnold Hayden's the owner of the property, and his son Chad resides there. And the violation has to do with the home occupation that Chad and Arnold operate from the property, Whitetail Landscaping. And so the recommendation is to hold off on, taking any action, give them, plenty of time to resolve that and then revisit it later on.
Right, so the issues will still stand, still be out there. There haven't been any complaints by anyone. And I think there was maybe a little confusion during the process. Does that seem, do you have anything you want to add to it, or?
How long are you talking of waiving the whatever penalties or getting this resolved?
Good question.
So, let's see, if he,
6 months.
I believe it was
Yeah,
6
I think
months.
it was 6
that
months,
was
yeah.
Discussed.
yeah,
That's the date, from the date of the issuing,
Right.
so it'd be at any time after April 7th, according to the memo.
So does the 6 months give zoning time enough to check their bylaws and rules that they're talking about looking into?
I think, that's one of the things he acknowledged, that it want to give them time to discuss it at the planning commission level, so that maybe there's some changes that
See,
could
they
potentially
were
be made.
talking, it could take up to a year.
Let me just see on the timeline.
That's why I'm asking,
Right,
we went from a year to 6 months. Is this 6 months gonna give them time enough?
let's see. So, my hope is to have a clear planning commission proposal and possibly a public hearing in February or March of 2020. That's what he says at the bottom, so I'm assuming he's waiting until after that point to give you the time.
That would be my biggest concern, is they have time to do their thing.
Right, yep. So I don't see an actual timeline deadline other than.
No,
I
other
think
than
he
it does
wants to
imply
give-
like it's gonna have, it'll take a little time for the planning commission.
Right.
And that, it sounds like he's looking at what would be required to address it at that point.
Yeah, so I think it's allowing you time to make any changes and also allowing that planning commission discussion to occur.
And it doesn't say to take action after 6 months, it says we assess.
Right, we reassess at that point.
That's my biggest concern.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems like a reasonable approach that Alex is taking on this, seeing some possible issues with trying to move forward with it and an opportunity to find a resolution.
Yeah.
So do we need a motion or?
Yeah, we would need a motion to move forward with Alex's recommendation to delay any action on the zoning violation.
Can I ask one question before we make the motion? There's no stoppage of their business or anything during this everything's,
No.
okay. All right.
So I'll make the motion.
Okay,
I'll second it.
do you have that?
Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? And is it clear on the timing in the motion, based on Alex's?
It says in the memo, I recommend the select board delay taking court action and reassess the situation 6 months from the notice of the violation, i.e. after April 7th.
But he said that's
Oh.
2019.
Right, it shouldn't say 2020 though, right?
Yeah, I think it either means, I would assume it means 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're almost into 2020, so.
Right, because the notice of the violation was on October 7th of 2019, so it's just a
Okay.
typo.
Yeah.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
so it would be till April 9th, did you say?
April 7th,
April
2020.
7th, 2020, so that would be the timing.
Cute.
All right,
Pockets full of biscuits tonight.
and did we have a second? Marilee. Okay, all those in favor of that motion to delay the action until April 7th?
It was not
2020?
said that there would be an action, but a
No.
reassessment, so I want to
Right.
be clear on that.
Okay.
It seems like it's a pretty complicated issue, and the zoning commission, Alex is working with Chad and his dad to resolve it. So it may take some time and
To
And-
reassess at that point.
reassess at that point, because Arthur seems worried that, we're going to bring down the hammer on
Right.
that date, and I don't think that that's the
No,
intention.
I'd agree that's not the intention.
So reassess rather than take action.
Okay. Do you have that, Val?
Yes, I do.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, so that passed, 5 votes. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you for coming.
Next item on the agenda is consider appointing a
Yeah.
constable. You guys are all set, yeah.
Yes, they did.
Thank you for taking the time to come.
Yeah.
So this is a position that we do have to appoint, huh?
We do,
It's a
yeah.
requirement we appoint. We hadn't, I guess, last year. And typically, it was the previous chief, Coss. And Chief Cambridge is willing to take on the constable.
Yep.
Even though we haven't noticed that it's missing, one of the duties of the constable is to remove disorderly people at our meetings. So
Wow.
there's some motive
We
that
should
is
have him
needed.
as on standby.
And perhaps dogs, I'm not just saying, like, if only if we ask.
Things we've never seen in a select board meeting yet.
Wow.
All
That's
right.
quite a list of responsibilities there.
Yeah,
So,
oh, yeah. Well, some towns that don't have any, yep, there's,
and so this position isn't always held by a law enforcement officer. And so we made a decision as a town quite a few years back to have it be someone within the department, and the chief seemed to be an appropriate position. So that's where we've landed.
So I'm a little unclear. Have we had a constable in the
Yes.
past?
Yes.
And what happened to that constable?
So the police chief has held that position.
I see.
So in this, once there was a changeover in chiefs,
Okay.
that was a formality that just didn't occur at that time. So each year when you guys have your meeting after town meeting, your reorganizational meeting, the constable position is one of those positions that
Oh,
you
really?
make
Go
the
up.
appointments of. So you did that after town meeting last year, but then in June, that position changed over. And so this is just formally
so
taking
I
that.
suppose, in a way,
change.
Frank might still be the constable.
Until,
Yes.
I mean, yes,
Yeah.
technically.
Unless we put a term limit on it at the time.
What's that? So
yeah.
no, I mean, tonight you're making that change. So you can do that in between, and once again, next March, you'll do it again. But this is just to fill that position until you formally
Thank you.
do it at your reorganizational meeting.
I think many years ago, we did elect a constable who was a write-in, I think. And then it didn't turn out well, and they actually had a town meeting to overrule that.
So I'll make a motion then to appoint Anthony Cambridge as the town constable.
Second.
And that would be until,
So until the next meeting in March
Yeah.
after town meeting or reorganizational meeting, and then we'll be doing that process.
And Anthony, I assume, has been consulted and he's amenable to this?
He is, yes. Yep.
okay. Any more discussion, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so none opposed, so that passed. Next item is a yearly event where we, based on the grand list, we, after the grand list is made, there are errors and omissions to it, and we have a list in our, in our packet of what those are, and do you want to?
Lisa, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Lisa Truchon. I am the hired assessor. And I'm here to speak to you about the errors and omissions of the grand list of 2019.
So in some cases, it's property or houses where that have changed in value because of some errors or.
Right.
And then the CU is.
Current use
Current use
exemptions.
changes.
Right.
That might happen.
Yep. So there's the list that you have. Do you have the same list that I
Yes.
have? Okay.
Yeah, with the with the
they
nice
do.
colors, yeah.
So basically what it is the grand list is down 180,500. So you multiply that by the municipal tax rate, that's how much money is at hand. And by doing errors and omissions and having that finalized before the end of December, we're not on the hook for any uncollected educational tax. So basically we have the grand list. The day that we do tax bills, that's our frozen entity. This is where we start. And the errors and omissions are a reconciling document to this is where we end. So if the state comes back and says, based on the December 31st grand list, this is what you owe us. And if it looks fishy, we need a document to prove why it changed. And that's what this does.
Right.
And then the bottom paragraph is the increased current use exemption results in lower tax revenue, but you get it back from the hold harmless revenue that we get from the state every year.
Okay.
So that's really kind of a wash, but it's an explanation of how the grand list changed.
So that whole harmless, does the state doesn't make up the entire difference?
They
do
make up the entire difference of what you lose for municipal taxes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Because everything that's enrolled in current use, the current use exemption, that is exempt from all education tax for the hold harmless part. So anything, and the point is that no town that's heavily into forest land or a lot of agricultural land, they don't hold the burden themselves.
Right.
The entire state of Vermont helps to share that burden
Yeah.
through the hold harmless payment.
Okay. All right. And is this about what it typically is each year? Does it seem more or
Sometimes
less?
yeah.
And what percentage of it is it? So.
Oh, goodness. Well, the total value was $634 million.
Okay.
So we're
there
losing
you go.
180,000 of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So it's a very small percentage. And it's based on errors and omissions, and it's any error on the lister's part. And everybody gets a change of appraisal every year. These are your new changes. And they don't necessarily respond to that change notice, but all of a sudden they get their tax bill and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is wrong.
Hey, we took our camp down or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, do we say, no, the line is passed, you cannot cross it? Or do we say, yeah, that's an error that should have been picked up either through your mistake or mine, but in the end of the day, this is right, this is proper, and this is fair and equitable. We take care of it instead of having people just spinning and building up steam
Yeah.
for next year, because every person has the right to grieve their assessed value every year, whether they had a change or not.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's
even
just-
if you've agreed to it one year and nothing's really changed, you can grieve it.
Or if you missed, you got the change notice, but you never thought to come in and say anything, so you've lost that opportunity, but next year you can still come back.
Okay.
So I just have one question.
Mm-hmm.
So I see there's pluses and minuses. That makes sense to me. Is Wheeler just a
He's a
commission?
plus.
Or is it just a flat even?
Wheeler,
Yeah.
129,400.
Yeah.
He's a plus.
He's a plus. Okay.
Yeah.
I just saw the plus 400 and I didn't know.
Yeah, that was
if I
because of the
remained
current
same.
use is really weird. But no, Wheeler was a plus.
Okay. I assumed so, but
And
I'm always wrong when I say
the second one, the 48,600, by state law, any property that has covenant restrictions, usually through the housing trust or from some other nonprofit organization, is entitled to a reduction in value of 30 to 40%. Because Burlington has statutory language that some of them must be 40, so the statute gives that spread. And most every town says 30, because that's the minimum we can give, and that's what that one is about.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? So we need a motion to accept this, the errors and omissions from the 2019 grand list as presented
I can make that motion for you.
I'll second it.
and seconded. Any more questions or any more information we need? No?
I have a question. We have also, that was 5B, we have also a 5A.
That was in a not, this is
This is the correct one.
up-to-dated,
Okay.
yeah. That was an
Thank you.
early one.
Yep,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the grand list as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No nays, so that motion passed. I think that's it.
Perfect,
Thanks.
thank you.
Yeah, you can check that box off.
There you go. I had all this stuff too.
And if you didn't bring it all, we would have asked all kinds of
Yeah, right.
Never fails.
The next item, it'll take a little while maybe, and that's general fund budget review. This is the initial start
Yeah.
of doing budgets. I'll let you go from here if you want.
Well, want to start with the budget status report, so where we are
Oh, yeah,
ending the
okay.
end of October.
Sorry, yep.
So it's just good to be, continually looking at
So
that, see where we are.
It's actually more than the first quarter. It's, maybe 30%, a
Yeah,
little more than
Yep.
30%, 32%. So if you've got something that you pay every day, that we should be paying about that amount. But in some cases, we pay 100%.
right.
Or some cases, it goes up more in the winter or the summer, so you have to look at them. And I guess we have it, so if I can ask for questions from folks, or I can ask a couple questions, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll start off. There were a couple of things that seemed like we were, running ahead. Just on that first page in the water department, testing. Actually, that wasn't that bad. I had a question mark there. I don't know why. But I had another question mark about government highway safety funds. And there was, I guess, nothing budgeted, but it's $3,671. It's in the police budget, line 4152.
Yeah. So those are grants that they get, and so they still has to show expenses when they spend the money.
Oh, okay.
And then it'll show on the revenue side.
There's some grants. Okay. And then the other one I had was, I should say what page, although there's no page marks.
Right.
In the highway,
Pages are at the top.
under 5140,
The page numbers are at the top
Oh,
of the
is it?
page, yeah.
oh yeah, page 8, sorry.
Page 8.
About 2/3 of the way down. Highway sand, so it seems like, I assume that we pre-screen the sand and we pay for that? And I
Yes.
was wondering if maybe if that gets hit on, the flooding we have, is that gravel too?
So, the sand is, yeah, they do have it screened, so they pay, an amount to get all of it screened, but they have been using, at this point, because of the different events that we've had just in the last
Yeah.
week or so, they've been using quite a bit of the salt sand.
Mm-hmm.
So we're,
I mean, the salt seemed okay, 25% seems a lot, but, winter's kind of started. But the other one's 76. I'm wondering, is it already pre-screened
yeah,
and
well,
ready to go?
yeah, and they buy it ahead of time, so they have more room to store it, so
Yes,
they can buy
that's
larger
true. Right,
larger
right.
amounts.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So
Yep.
the stockpile, that's why.
Right.
Right,
Yeah,
no,
but
that's
it's
the
been-
amount that they've
it's been
purchased.
purchased, yeah.
Yes, but they were able to get a better rate because they can store more. Yeah.
And then the next one I had a question about was on page 11, health insurance. We're up over 40%,
Yep.
and it seems like we'd be better off if we were at 32%.
Yeah, so again, health insurance is a tricky one to budget for in a normal circumstances, just because there are always changes, either changes in staffing or changes in the mix, from a current employee that maybe something happens in their family, and now they go from a single plan to a family plan, or a single plan to a two-person. So those things can happen during the year that can really significantly throw off the budget. So we've definitely had some of that. We do have that every year. But more importantly, it's good to be looking at that, that line.
As we go into
as we
budget
go
season.
into budget
Yeah.
season, and that's gonna be a topic
Yeah.
for the budget
Okay.
tonight.
So just, that one is a concern, I think, because it's a big number.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that is one that you're just gonna keep paying out. You haven't prepaid anything there. Are there any other, so that were my questions, I guess. It's always good to take a quick look at it. Were there any other questions for anyone else?
So I think I asked Justin, but what's our fiscal year? Is it December, January 1?
No, it's from July 1 to June 30th.
So I was like 30%, 40%, so I figured.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were a couple repairs under buildings and facilities. I know the tool cat was one, but what were some of the others?
Let me see. What page?
Sidewalk tool cat, that was a big one.
Yeah.
What page is that one on?
5. Town Forest Committee, that was,
So the town
Oh, that was
forest committee,
logging. That was
remember, that's the
logging.
logging, and so they
Yeah.
aren't, they are,
right. No, but there was another one. 440, 3710, equipment repair and maintenance.
let's see, let me look at it.
I know
It's-
they've done some work on
A
plow.
lot of it has been the tool cat.
No, the tool cat's a separate line, that was 3,000, but then there's,
But do you just put it under the separate line, or do you sometimes put it under the equipment repair and maintenance?
Yeah, without looking at the
Yeah.
detail,
Yeah.
I can't tell off the top of my head.
Right.
I know they were telling me they did some things on the plows, like new shoes and stuff like that, so.
It could also
Maybe
be
that's what-
some work on one of the trucks, like the pickup trucks, because one of those is
That's
kind
what
of,
they did put
you know,
springs on
yeah.
one of
Yeah.
those two. Yeah,
30,
okay.
yeah, so a portion of it is
Yep, all right.
out of buildings and facilities.
All right, any other? It's kind of early. Yeah? Any
So except for
concerns?
health insurance? I
What's
was gonna
that?
ask,
Yeah,
except for
yeah.
health insurance, everything seems to
Yeah,
be going
on
along
your-
pretty well?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I think so far, everything, again, this winter, well, this fall, happy
Yes.
fall, everyone, is starting out much like last year, where it came, we had a lot of those freeze-thaw cycles, but, cold weather where it just didn't end. And so we used a lot of salt and sand, and so that budget, if it continues the trend that it's already started, we may those ones may, be
Yeah.
over like they were last year. But again, that's all weather dependent, and some things are a little bit out of our control.
All right. So the next one we'll get probably out in January after.
Yeah, I mean, I may
6
just,
months.
put them in there each
Okay,
month.
okay.
I mean, we were doing them quarterly, but
Yeah,
if I think of it, I'll just throw them
all
in
right.
there.
Yeah, and I think anything that seems out of place, one way or the other, would be
Yeah.
good to get a handle on.
And especially.
Because while we're doing budget,
Yes, especially during budget planning,
Yeah.
it's good for you to be looking at where we're at now, so that, I've asked each department head to be looking at that and look back a few years as they're making their budget requests, but it's good for you to see it too, where we're tracking this year.
I do, try to send those out to all the department heads monthly, and then remind everybody if you see something that looks unusual, then we
right.
can look at the detailed transaction
Yeah.
and then see what,
Right.
why.
Okay,
Yep.
So,
that's good. So it is being looked at pretty closely.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right, any other questions on that? Next item is now, going ahead, our first look at budget proposals. And it's town clerk and some of the smaller items to get us warmed up, I think.
Yeah, so we'll start with the assessor budget and welcome Lisa back to the
Yes.
guest of honor seat.
So I think that the $35,000 budgeted for the professional services, I don't expect that will change much. I'm not expecting an increase at all in that for this year. So I think 35,000 is fine. I know that the actuals for FY19 on the tax mapping is different, and that's because the town participated in the statewide mapping project. So a lot of the cost for the mapping services of updating shape files and all of that was done through the state funding. But then for this year, you go back to the old.
Okay, we do it ourselves. And this is when property changes and gets subdivided, and it's to update all those maps.
So the map, we have the townwide tax maps, and that's the shape file. It's all a shape file. And that's what's shared with regional planning.
Yep.
And so that's always the shape file that shows up on the A&R map
Yep.
at regional planning and all of that. And so what they do is they come in every year and they look at any new recorded Mylars, anybody who's done a subdivision, a boundary line adjustment, a split, or even just surveyed existing property to clean up the lines. So all of that information is input into the system, and then new maps are produced, a digital file plus the paper maps, and we have paper maps downstairs and upstairs. And that's how those are used. So I think that number's right. The one you have professional development 215, and I know that's been used before, and this year it didn't, but there's a Vermont Assessor and Listers Association, and that's how people become members. And since the town of Hinesburg hires me, I'm also the lister in Lincoln. I'm a member by that virtue. And I work in Richmond also. And Richmond does the membership because the town of Richmond is interested and one of the people sitting at the table when it comes time to talk about tax policy. And in the past, we've had the town of Hinesburg also become a member of V.A. So when we go to the legislature or there's discussion in the tax policy, how many towns does V.A. represent? Not just how many actual people show up, but how many towns are sitting
Right.
at the table. And they're an advocacy group for tax policy. So they do a lot with the education tax, the equalization study, how does that play out? How does it impact people? And we have committees at V.A. who then go and testify at the State House about
Okay.
different topics. So that's one of the things we'd like to, I think that's a good use of town money to keep our name relevant and to say,
Have
yes,
our
we
name in the
support,
hat a little bit,
we
a little
support
bit.
this activity.
Yeah,
And that's about it.
okay.
And I see there's a budget line for supplies, and Since the reappraisal, we don't really use any.
Okay. So
We use supplies, but we don't have specific supplies
Right.
that are purchased for us. It's paper.
That could include cookies sometime. I just have to say that.
it could be the assessor's office that provides the refreshments for the select board meetings.
Yes,
We could make
that's
that.
Well, I'm thinking since there's
$200.
$250 in FY20, maybe I could get a chair. I don't know if you've tried to sit in my chair.
Wow, we
Maybe.
could talk about that,
But
Lisa.
I don't sit in a lot.
Right.
So that's my
right.
thoughts
All
on the
right.
budget.
No, that's good. Any questions?
Buy you a chair.
Yeah,
I'll talk to Cheryl when she goes to.
yeah,
Next person that goes to Staples, maybe go get me a chair.
There we go.
Person that stands up, just.
yeah. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm leaving now. Have a good
Okay.
night.
Thank you for coming. And-
All right, next is the town clerk, treasurer, elections.
Right. You
Hello.
too get to sit in the guest of honor seat.
How is everyone?
Great.
Good. Okay. Well,
Now, so Jeff, this was your budget, yeah? Okay, so,
yeah. Let's see, just a couple of things. The salary, I just rounded up because I know that you guys deal with that at a later date. So, I was just sort of keeping it a round number. Joan's budget, which is the accounting assistant, is staying the same. I looked at where we are to date. I think we'll be okay with that.
okay.
Let's see, office supplies has been consistent. We buy a lot of the supplies that, everybody in the building uses, unless they ask for something specific for their department.
Okay, they can come and get pens and
Yeah, yeah.
paper and
Cookies. Yeah. Sometimes we get those in the office supply boxes, which is very exciting. Land record supplies, that last year, Tom, I believe you noticed when we were doing my budget here last year that I had accidentally done a typo and had that as 0, and we discussed it and made a motion to put it on, but it never made it into the town
Oh,
report.
okay, yeah.
So anyway, that's the background on that one. And so I am asking for $2,750, which is what I had proposed for last year, which I assume was based on the actual expenditures from the year before. That's a kind of a tricky one, only because the major expense there is the books that we record all the documents in, and just depending on the timing of, some years we only order 6, other years we order 12. It just depends on when we need them, and we order them in batches of 6. So it fluctuates a little bit, so I'm just allocating enough that we can get 12 if we need them. Travel, you'll see there is a little bit of an increase there because Cheryl is, as you all know, retiring at the end of March, and she has, for the last 20 years, dropped the bank deposits off on her way home in Shelburne. So now we won't be able to do that anymore, so.
We won't contract out with her.
So what bank do we use then?
People's, yeah. We do use the community bank. We do use community bank for the water and sewer funds.
Yeah.
So,
So then how is that going to be done? Who's going to
well,
do it?
just either myself or, whoever, my assistant.
So that's if you figure 50 cents a mile, whatever it is, 52 or 57, that's 1,000 miles.
To do it once a week. Yeah.
Seems like a lot. I don't know.
And there's no possibility to do that online? I'm not recommending that because I don't
Well-
like doing that. I'm just asking.
Well, you get,
You can do what they call remote capture, where you scan all the checks
Right.
and then they do that, but we still have,
cash.
yeah, I mean, occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if that does seem like a lot,
Well, it's not,
I
that- I
didn't-
mean, in the overall scheme, it's gonna be whatever it is. So
Right.
whoever drives there and back will get whatever it is, 57
And we
cents.
don't
Right.
know what the salary of the new Cheryl is either, and maybe that's,
Or you just hire somebody from Shelburne, that's one of the requirements.
or Williston, that would work.
Just to do a little mileage, right? Oh, wait, I'm using the wrong thing. I'm going by time, not by miles.
Oh.
Let me go with miles.
And
I'm
there
doing
are-
math in the back
I'm
of my
sorry.
head.
Go ahead. I was going to say there are times of the year where we go more often than
often,
that.
yeah, like when-
particularly the
Right
last couple
now.
weeks.
Yeah, right. Okay, now I get that, yep.
So 8 miles each way, once a week, right? There and back would be $8.52. So
852 miles.
dollars.
Not 852.
yourself.
I give up.
If it's eight,
Divided by 50.
People's pay.
okay. Well, yeah, but
Resolve these problems.
sure.
It seems
I
like
mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay, but in the meantime,
It's roundabout.
Yeah.
in
Right.
the meantime,
Yeah.
yeah.
what we're saying
Okay.
is it's reasonable.
yeah.
Right.
If we don't use it, we don't use it. That's
Right.
fine. Yeah, so let's see, ads and notices, that's just for if we have a tax sale or if there are other things I need to publicly notice, which I
Yeah.
will probably be doing.
Like BCA stuff also goes into that?
I'm sorry?
BCA stuff?
Yep,
Health-
yeah.
Food and
I
Health.
mean, most of those I don't have to put in the paper, but some election stuff I do,
Yeah,
yeah.
certainly.
So there's one on here or two that I have a hard time figuring out.
Okay,
It says on the right, under notes, combine this line with records restoration, that's the print, bind, and micro,
yep.
which was almost 5,500, which is gonna be gone, but then the line for records restoration still shows 0, and that's only at,
They're both zero because those funds are the ones that we hold in reserve from the recording fees.
Okay, so that's
So
in a
those are the
different spot.
expenditures, but there's no tax revenue
Oh.
involved. And there's just basically no reason to have both of them because they're really all
Yeah,
both. Yeah,
okay.
so. Let's see. So I guess that's basically it.
Okay, yeah.
As far as the wages go, I did want to say that we increased the percentage of Cheryl's salary that was charged to water and sewer because it's just
Taking more
It's
time.
taking more time, and I've known
Okay.
for a long time that it was taking more time.
Okay.
And so I haven't accounted for that in the proposed wages, but that's in part because I wanted to leave a tiny bit of a cushion in there because Cheryl has agreed that when we need extra help for various things
She
that
could
she,
come.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
starting in January, I guess.
No, she's actually staying
now
through
extended.
March.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I sort of
Election.
asked her to because of
Okay.
the election and
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. And who wants to retire?
So you haven't
for January?
started any search yet or anything?
No, mainly because
Yeah.
she's agreed to stay for
Yeah.
another few months. So
Okay.
I think Renee and I talked about a schedule. So
Mm-hmm.
I think probably we'll advertise it either late December or early January kind of thing.
All right. Elections?
Yeah.
And this would be an actual presidential election, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So the only really big, well, I mean, as you know, if you've been on the board for a while, the elections budget fluctuates every other year, gets a little bigger or smaller depending how many elections we have. The one change you will see here is I was budgeting I'm hoping that maybe I can budget $5,000 for salaries because it is a presidential year, and I know from past experience that we're going to have just a ton of early voting. Yeah. And since they've implemented the whole new statewide checklist, it's much, much more time consuming. So it requires a lot of data entry and tracking and,
And so you have some folks who help do that.
I haven't, no,
Oh.
because this system wasn't in place the
Okay.
last time we had a presidential election. That person would hopefully be Cheryl.
Okay.
She has agreed to help out through the
Those kind of
presidential
things.
year.
Okay.
Yeah, even though she sort of jokingly always says that she was retiring because she didn't want to go through another presidential election year.
It's whole mean to the, you can run, but you can't hide.
Right. So,
Yeah, right, but she's not the only one, when you mention presidential elections, want to run away for whatever
Right.
reason. It doesn't matter what side you're on, it's just like,
yeah.
who wants to go there? But, okay. Right.
Any questions? Or?
No, we good?
All right.
Delinquent tax?
That's,
Those are no
yeah,
longer.
we rolled it into the clerk's budget.
Yes, that's right,
Yeah.
right, exactly,
So
yeah.
they'll just stay
Yeah.
on there until they're
Till they
completely zeroed
disappear.
out.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right, seems pretty good. Is there
Okay.
anything you need from us, or?
No, I don't think so.
All right,
Budget yet.
easiest, is that what you said?
Cleanest budget yet.
Yeah. All right.
Well, it's nice to meet
Yeah,
you and
that's good.
have a chance to sort of talk about stuff, so if you have any other questions, feel free to
Yeah, I
give
will.
me a jingle.
Come by.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, next item up is Lake Iroquois Association. Chris, right? Yeah. Chris has been here before representing. Are you president? Is that, is it called president of the?
I guess.
Probably not.
Missy, did you sign in?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
thanks.
Thank you.
Brought some propaganda with me.
Great.
Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you.
So I think for the last several years, we've had money in the budget for helping the organization work on water quality. Couple years ago, there was a request for herbicide, and I think at that point, the board said, geez, we're a little unsure about that, and it was a warned item on
Yep.
for town meeting. And I think you're looking at something similar again this year?
Something similar. We're considering going in front of the state again and to apply for a permit to use a chemical that was used in 4 lakes in Vermont and has been used across the country in several applications. The 4 lakes that were in Vermont that used it in 2019 have shown amazing results and have shown immediate results. Within a few weeks, they saw deterioration of the weed problem that we have with milfoil. We're working, we have a group of people that, board members, that are working in what we call as a Lake Iroquois Milfoil Action Committee, and just investigating the use of the herbicide. It's called Procelicor, and it is approved by the Department of Health in the state and also through the DEC. And so we're one of, I think, probably 6 or 7 lakes in the state that are going to potentially apply. We're trying to get our ducks in a row so that we can be able to come in front of each community as part of the permit process, but also as a public information process. So long story short, the $15,000 that we're requesting is for a multifaceted approach to this, because we're going to, number one, we're not guaranteed to be able to use the herbicide, as we know through the last time. And number two, we have multiple ways that we're dealing with basically invasive controls through the lake and prevention and controls through the lake, whether it be our DASH program, which is a diver assisted harvesting, or our greeter program, which is done at the access area. Our Bensec barrier program, which is applying weed barriers on the bottom of the lake in various places, primarily around the public access areas, the beach area, and also the access area. We have this greeter program that we've developed over the last 5 years, has really been instrumental in the success of keeping away other problems. And as you've seen, Lake Dunmore had zebra mussel problem, and just recently, there's 50 species in Vermont, and you've heard me say this before. I think we've got 2 in Lake Iroquois, milfoil and water invasive species, and pondweed. Those are the 2 that we have in Lake Iroquois. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that we're in a crisis, and I'm just going to take a couple minutes to show you some pictures, so mainly for the public to see.
Yeah.
But we have a lot going on. We have, as we do each year. I come in front of you tonight representing. There's 12 of us, 13 of us on the board, but we have a lot of projects going on. We're working on a project with on BB Lane, where we're trying to take a redesign of that road. That's a huge environmental and phosphate problem added to our lake, and
so stormwater.
We're
what you've done on Dynamite Hill and other places.
Yep. And we've been working on certain. You guys were instrumental in working on Pine Shore with us, and the various projects that we've worked on surrounding the lake in the different communities. But BB Lane is number one, a public access road that's used by hundreds of cars a week. But also, it's one of our biggest problems with phosphate and any kind of environmental additive to the lake problem. So we've been working with the town of Williston in that, and Lake Iroquois Recreation District as a collaborative effort, plus the landowners on BB Lane. And collaboratively, we've brought money together and done a initial study at the redesign of that road, and now we're looking forward to maybe put a shovel in the ground if we can get some funding to do that. And that's a big project. It's a $250,000 project. It's a mile-long road, and it only comes down to the beach area. So that's a big project that we're working on also.
Is that a project that you've actually got funded now, or you're working through the project?
We actually got funding for the scope of works for the project, and we worked through that. We're working with Department of Public Works, Bruce Hoare in Williston. And, it's been great. It's been a good project, and we originally have put together $30,000 with the landowners and the town of Williston and Lake Iroquois Recreation District and Lake Iroquois Association. So collaboratively. And I'll be honest with you, with the fact that we are now working very closely with Lake Iroquois Recreation District for various reasons, as you can imagine. I think we've finally got a nice dovetail where two of their board members are on our board, and we seem to see things moving.
Yeah, that's good, because I think 6 or 8, 10 years ago on this board, a couple times I heard board members say, "You guys really should be working together."
Right.
More than maybe you were. So that's good to hear.
We were.
Yeah, so that's good to hear.
And not in a critical sense, but we really weren't working the way that we're working today or in the last 4 or 5 years, and especially in the last 2 years. And so it's really encouraging for us because there are so many users on the lake. So. I with the whole Procelicor process and the permit process with DEC, we really are working hard to make sure that we have all of our apples in a row, and also that we really look at an investigative approach here and make sure that we're doing the right thing. And so we've been in contact with the Four Lakes, with people that are that were involved in the permitting and also involved in the application, and had seen some very, very good successes with that. So long story short, that's the action committee is working real hard to make that happen, so that we can then make a decision collectively on both on a board member basis, but also as communities coming together. And I do want to show you some pictures, but I'll get into that in a second. Just to give you, we applied for through the greeter program. Through the DEC Aquatic Nuisance Grant, we applied for a $42,000 grant and got for both greeters and dash, and we were awarded $15,000 or almost $15,000. So that was good. We have done diver-assisted suction harvesting again this year, and we spent about $6,000 on that. And so when I look at the $15,000 that we're looking to use in 2021, it's a very, very collective approach to trying to deal with this milfoil problem that we have over there. If we don't ever get a permit for herbicide, then we've got to have some kind of tool pouch that we're going to reach into. So there's a lot of different things that we need to be working with, and one of them is the diver hand pulling. I'll be honest with you, when AB Aquatics, the contractor that did our pulling this year, finished, he told us that this was the worst lake that he had seen in his history of his job.
Okay.
So that
and this was a exceptionally bad year this year, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Looking at Lake Iroquois Recreation District, I've got some statistics to show you. Back in 2014, they brought in almost $20,000 worth of revenue. 15, almost $24,000. 16, $28,000. 17, $13,000. And 18, $11,000. And 19, they think anywhere from 10 to 12,000. They haven't got those final numbers. So it's gone way down.
And that's the users.
That's the users. I mean, we had, many of you know Jim Johnson, who works for both LARD and LIA. Jim said that they had one man that came in to swim, walked into the water up to his knees, turned around, and the smell was so bad that he asked for his money back. Mm-hmm. And, we're talking about a day use permit, $8. But it is that bad. And I would love to just show you these pictures.
Sure.
And I don't know where the best place I can show them to you.
It might be up here so that.
Well, he can show you here.
Can I show them right here?
Yeah, put it on the table. And
Okay.
Hold it
just
up
make sure I got it right here. Okay.
Yeah, like that.
So, like this, we'll see if it works for you.
So we see the boat launch on the left there.
Yep.
Yeah, and the beach.
So the browning is basically a combination of milfoil, thick crust caused from the milfoil, and I'm talking about browning in these areas too, not just on the exterior. So we have a gentleman, his name is Pogo Senior, and he does aerial drone photos for us and has done them. We've got since 2011. So this is one. These were all done in August, and I'm hopefully going to hold this at the right. All that brown is milfoil, and it's the worst we've ever seen it. I mean, we are a late in crisis, as Lake Carmi was. We're going to the state to see if we can declare becoming a lake in crisis because there are federal funds available, potential federal funds available to be able to get some help. And so we're a mess. Another picture. Again, all of this happened in August. The smell is horrific. People have stopped swimming. People have stopped kayaking. You know, we have hundreds and hundreds. Well, this year at the boat launch, we had 860 boats come in on Friday afternoon, Saturday and Sunday, through the course of the summer, plus the 3 holidays. So Memorial Day, 4th of July, and Labor Day. And we washed 160 of those boats. Fortunately, you know, we prevented probably another problem coming into the lake. But the success of that program alone, which is almost 20 some odd $1,000 with our in-kind matching, has really done an amazing job on preventing further problems down the road. But this is what we're dealing with. And this is just on the beach end and the access area, and it doesn't, you know, we're about 70% of the lake is covered with milfoil. And it's, it really is, it's a mess. And so we're developing a new outreach program for both members and for community people. We have an amazing resource, as you've heard me speak many times. We're surrounded with 200 acres almost of recreation land. I see more and more users on that lake each year. But boy, I see a lot of people that get pretty frustrated. We were at the fire department. Your fire department, once again, was instrumental in the success of our greeter program this year.
Keeping the water
Tank full. And so we go over there and with a thank you and bring them pizza one night. And many of them said, we're not going to put our boat in there anymore because we're not going to, it's just not worth it. And so my fight is that we're going to try to keep pushing and try to fix it. And however we need to do that. And many different, avenues. I have, right now, I have a list of 12 people that have, outside of our membership community, so people that don't live on the lake, that have volunteered to help us on the milfoil action committee. And I think that's just shows that we have a lot of people that are interested in doing something about it. Going to each community and having this same discussion, because we're really we're going to keep fighting here and try to get something done. But when I hear that both Solitude, the contractor that does the applications, and AB Aquatics that does the contracting for pullings, it tells us that it's such a mess that so we need to pay close attention to this problem. And we also have the problem downstream with Sunset also, so we're trying to work with them. There's a group of people there that are also interested in working with us. So a lot of information coming that will be coming, and I know, poor Renee is always answering me back and trying to, I'll send you as much information as I can when I know more about it. But also I'll come back in front of you and we'll do a presentation strictly on the opportunity of using Procelicor or an herbicide. And if it works for our communities, then we'll do it. But if it doesn't, we know how that process works because we've been there before.
I'll just make a comment that the fact that you're working with the association,
Yeah.
Recreation Association,
Yep.
you know, I think is an important piece because it's not just landowners and beachfront owners that are impacted. It is everybody, and it is an important resource for us. I was trying to look to see what we budgeted last year.
7,500.
7,500, okay. And we've
Last 2
done,
years.
yeah, we've done that regularly. I think it's gone up a little bit.
Yeah.
I also appreciate the fact it's a multi-tiered approach, which seems like the right way to go. And so you're looking to increase it. You're asking for 15.
For 15.
Will that that doesn't will that include that? Will that be used toward the herbicide, or will that be a separate item?
No, we're looking at, so we've looked at the history of the lakes that have applied for the permits and applied. And in certain cases, like with, I'll use an example, Lake St. Catherine, which is a fairly big lake. They've got about a $250,000 budget for 5 years because the state requires not only that you, if you have money set aside for the herbicide, you still have to do the other opportunities. Because number
Can't
one,
just rely on that.
we can only apply this particular herbicide if we did get a permit to 40% of the lake at one time. So it takes you X amount of years to get around the lake, but also that they recommend that there's alternative years that you don't use an herbicide in that 5-year window. So to answer your question, Phil, $15,000 is what I'm asking for, or we're asking for from the Williston and Hinesburg. And do I expect that to go up or down? I don't know, because to be honest with you, I really, we're not sure yet.
Yeah.
And I will know more the next time I come in front of you. But we'll have a 5-year management plan in front of us before we do anything.
Right, and that's
we
sort of
expect
part of the permitting process.
And we expect to have that done in the next 60 days.
Okay.
So I'll have more information.
All right.
I'll let you get through budget season, but
So is that 15,000 from each community or total from all three?
15,000 from Williston and Hinesburg. We've asked Richmond for 1,000, but they also pay 3,200 for our plant survey through their Conservation Commission. So they're actually 4,200 that they've given us for the last 2 years. And so it will vary, being that there's 14 properties in Williston, 70 properties in Hinesburg, I think 1 property in Richmond. So
Do you have an advocate from Fish and Wildlife or anybody like that who's familiar with the product?
again, because it's only been used for the last year, Tom, this particular Fish and Wildlife and DEC work together. There is discussions between Fish and Wildlife and DEC of what is the best approach to this problem, because this problem is so significant in many lakes in Vermont. And so so we're working with DEC. Of course, there's been a big change in DEC in the last year because of our first application. So there's been a lot of changes. And so, we're starting over, basically.
Yeah.
And so to answer your question, not from Fish and Wildlife, but with DEC we're working very closely with them.
Right.
So, and will through this application process.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
I was in support of the last
Yep, I know you were.
application.
yeah.
I'm in support of this one because that lake is, we used to water ski up there all the
Yeah.
time. I wouldn't even think about it now.
No.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's actually detrimental to the other plants and fish and birds in the lake because of this one plant. So
Well, that's why we do the plant survey every few years. It tells us how many species we've lost, and
Right.
we've got information that can tell us how many we've lost just each 2 years.
Right.
It's pretty significant. And then that is the whole ecological system that
Right.
we're losing, you know.
Oh, definitely.
Really did
So last time, wasn't it called sonar, the
Yeah,
the chemical?
yeah.
And I remember it came to a vote in town meeting, and it
Yeah.
was extremely controversial.
Yeah.
People felt very strongly on both sides.
Yeah.
So I would think this would also need to be a town meeting vote, because a lot of people will be impacted, and people are very sensitive about their health.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So, I think I'm here, but I am representing the dollar value I'm representing to be used in many different aspects of this process. And we really feel like there's a great opportunity for us to look at many different ways
So
here.
there are a couple of things just to work off of that. I think last time, because it was for that one item, we
that
did
30
make it, we did make it
30,000.
a separate item. It did pass. Personally, I was surprised. I was surprised it passed, but it did pass. And this time around, I think what you're saying is, hey, we want to increase the amount, and we're going to continue to use all of the previous actions we've been doing, and we also are going for this permit. So potentially, if we got the permit, some of these funds could be used for that. That's kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But it's not like we would use $30,000 specifically for, or $15,000 specifically for for any kind of herbicide application.
Right. It's kind of bundled together, which is a good way to do it, I think. And also, that's assuming the permit goes through. So if the permit didn't go through,
Right.
you would have these funds to apply for other ways.
Yeah.
So I also have a question about the Procelicor, is that right?
Procelicor, yeah.
Procelicor.
Yep.
So you do a 40% or 15%, which did you say?
40% of the lake, they restrict you to 40% of the lake application.
And is that for health reasons?
No, I think it's just for the environmental reason, both environmental and ecological, but also I think that this is a way that the DEC has decided that they can use that chemical and know that it's being used in a fairly conservative way, I would say.
So what I don't understand is, while 40% of the lake is getting the milfoil killed, the other 60%, the milfoil's really working hard on making as much as they
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, we don't really understand the whole 40%.
I mean, it may just be the
Piece.
shock, the shock value of,
Well,
One shot.
in looking at other lakes that have done this, have they been successful with that 40%?
In this first year, yes.
But 1 year's 40%, it's not the whole lake then, that
Not the
gets
whole
cleaned
lake.
up.
In this case in Vermont, we have only communicated with the 4 lakes that used it this summer.
I
Nobody
see.
has used it other than that in Vermont.
Okay,
We haven't
so-
reached out. We haven't had the opportunity to reach outside other states who have been using it for a few years.
Okay, but there may be a lot that's still unknown about it.
Yeah.
Including how
So this
effective
is
it is
what-
in the long run.
And this is what we're looking at.
Okay.
Yeah. And we've been in communications with the health department as we were before and working through that piece too, so.
And the benthic mats, they seem pretty successful, right? Because it's clear around the boat launch, and that's
Yeah,
because
well,
of the benthic mats, is that right?
No, it's not totally, because we spent money on hand pulling there also.
Okay.
So the cost of the hand pulling, we spent $23,000 two years ago. We spent $6,000 this last year. And in that $6,000 that we spent last year, we did less than an acre. We have 70% of a 240-acre lake that isn't, infested. So the combination of the two issues, or the two applications over a period of time, but I don't know, I think we would be asking for a lot more money. And it's quite controversial also, is it the right approach?
Right, it
Right.
does
Well, yeah,
stamp
well,
out.
we
Because you're
need
pulling
is-
everything, you're not just
Right.
pulling milfoil. And so that is, for the environment or the ecological balance of the
And
lake.
it doesn't get rid of it permanently. It's
That's
just-
right.
What we
Yeah.
need is a fish that loves milfoil.
Yeah. The weevil that we've tried a few times. And
All right, any, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I got a couple questions. I reached out back in August, asking some questions, and I hadn't heard. So one of my questions, how much is the 40% application? How much do you estimate that's gonna cost to do the 40% application, if this gets passed?
Right. If we look at, I'm just looking at permits now.
Yeah.
As far as the overall cost that St. Catherine used.
Yep.
So basically, we've estimated about $40,000 for
Okay.
the first application.
So about 100,000 total over multiple years?
No, we're looking at more than that, 150,000
Okay.
probably in a 5-year window, looking at the cost.
So the one thing is, and also does this, like you said, it pulls everything. Is this new chemical, is it just attack milfoil or it targets everything?
No, target specific to
Okay.
milfoil, yeah, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. So the question I'd ask is, had we looked, and I'm sure you probably have, the up at Lake Bomacene, or I should say down, the aquatic weed harvester. It's about an $82,000, and
Yeah.
you can supposedly it works. I don't know if that's been looked at, or maybe a shared rental type of agreement. Just it was something that came up to me from somebody in the community, and that's what I had reached out about. And I'm just wondering, have we looked at that? Is that
we have,
effective or not?
One of the problems that we have is that you have to have staff to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the staffing to employ 3 individuals running a boat for a summer would be, we wouldn't be able to afford it, to be honest with you. We've got, if we had 3 members, 2 divers, and you have to have, by law, you have to have, X amount of divers and people on top of the boat, and per divers. And so if you looked at purchasing the boat, we have looked at purchasing the boats and looked at purchasing the boats and be able to staff it. We're talking about a significant amount of money, upfront money, to be able to do that. So if we looked at a used boat, there was a used boat that was $30,000, but it was going to cost us $40,000 a summer to employ it. And so we're aware of that, but I don't know if we can afford to do that.
Do
to
we know
be
how
able-
effective it is?
The harvesting tends, because Eurasian milfoil propagates just by breaking pieces off every time a boat, or a vessel goes through, the harvesting tends to be the worst application because of the fact that you're breaking pieces off. As opposed to hand pulling and vacuum suction harvesting, you're actually pulling everything, but you're actually taking and putting it on the deck before. And I can share with you, back when you reached out to me, I had an ankle replacement beginning of August, and I was out for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I think
That's okay. I'm asking the questions now.
Yeah.
Because the weed harvester, the only reason I ask is, right, so to the controversy part, it's chemicals versus how effective is this?
Yeah.
They're about the
Yeah,
same
no,
cost.
no,
if
that's
you're
right.
looking for 30,000 a year, 40,000,
Right.
you know what I mean?
If the weed didn't propagate as easy as it does, then number one, I don't think we'd be in the situation that we're in.
Right.
And number two, I think harvesting would be an opportunity. But
Okay. And
it
so-
does propagate really easy.
Okay, so I know they say they've got something that sucks it up behind, but I trust you. So with the Procellacor, and you do the 40%, do we know, is there a possibility of it just growing back into that 40% while we wait to do the next? Or is it, like, you know what I mean? Is it something you're
Yeah.
going to have to do
Yeah.
continuously forever in 40%
It's
chunks?
going to be an ongoing,
Okay, so it's not shock and go, we're clean,
No,
wait a couple
no.
of years?
We're never
Okay.
gonna we've been told that we're never gonna be able to eradicate the weed completely.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do realize is if we don't get it under control, we're never, by
Yep.
these methods, we're never gonna gain control of the lake, the health of the lake again.
Okay. And
Because it does just propagate
Yeah.
and grow so rapidly.
And it's changing the lake.
It's changing
changing
the
the,
lake. I totally agree, something
Yeah.
has to be done. I'm just asking.
Yep, no, I
right, 'cause
appreciate
I've
you
got
asking the
feedback from
questions.
different
Yep,
people, and I'm just
yep.
asking all the different angles.
Absolutely.
So the other one I had is, so I know there's the use fee, right, for using the beach. Is there a similar fee structure for boats?
No, there isn't. It's a state fishing access, so they state permit.
Yeah.
Your permit for your boating permit
Pays
is
for
the
that.
only opportunity there. We aren't able to charge a usage
Okay.
fee.
Because my understanding is a lot of the milfoil, it's between the boats. That's why you wash them off when they come in or out.
I think
the
we're as
milfoil's
concerned about
already
it.
there, so.
No,
it's
I
not-
understand, but I guess I was assuming if there's a way we could control the milfoil, shock it, get rid of it,
Right.
it might behoove for a few years to say, landowners on the lake, great, keep your boat on the lake, but I'm just saying.
I think
you
if
know, I'm thinking
anything,
of different
we're
offers.
also looking at the opportunity of moving it to another lake,
Mm-hmm.
which we should be concerned about, but also the importing of another problem,
Right.
whether it's mussel,
Zebra mussel
And
or
we're
whatever.
very fortunate to be able to have two peat problems right now, but because there's so many problems.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to stop boating, public boating. It's just like to
Yeah.
control the problem,
Right.
get it under control, and then, because it seems like you're kind of like trying to change the tires while the car's going down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yep.
okay, I just had some clarifications
Yeah,
that
no,
I
I
don't understand,
appreciate your
so
questions.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, or we're gonna be coming up against this
Yeah.
again
Yeah.
when it comes time to sort of finalize the budget,
And we'll,
so.
as soon as we get our, we're working very hard. We're meeting multiple times a week to try to get this done before the first of the year.
Yeah.
So.
I think it would be great if you had those pictures digital.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
could put them on.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
we're actually working on redeveloping our website and then we can link it together. And also any kind of projects that we're working on, our website and, social media is how we're
Yeah.
gonna
You
develop.
provided the letter from the Department of Health in our packet, which
Yeah.
is good. I think, any information you have on the 4 lakes that have been treated.
Yep.
And also, I think it would be good to reach out and find a couple of examples, outside of the state.
Yep.
Where it's been multi-year and, is it really going to significantly improve things, or, are we chasing our tail, I guess?
The
That
four
would be
lake-
good to know.
Yeah, the 4 lakes have seen
Yeah.
significant change.
Right.
Already, in just, within a few
Well,
weeks.
in the packet, it said outstanding or excellent, so, yeah.
So there is
But
those.
you don't know whether
The
that's
long-
gonna
how
be
long?
long-term.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
right.
whether it might,
Yeah,
after
exactly.
being subdued, it might come back
Yep, yeah.
much stronger.
Yep, yeah, yeah, harder and stronger.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the time.
Sure.
I appreciate working with all of you and look forward to keeping you informed.
Yeah,
And as
and
soon
we-
as I get a packet together with good, solid information, we'll be sharing it with
Well,
you.
I think, speak for the board, we appreciate the volunteer work that your organization does. This is a great resource for the town, which is in danger. I mean, you're saying, hey,
Yep.
it's not danger, it's a crisis, it's in crisis. So, and we appreciate the fact, the way your group has really matured too over the years, so.
Thank you. And I appreciate the respect and working with each of you, because that's huge, and with the Conservation Commission. So, thank you.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Thanks very
Yeah.
much.
Chris, can you send me a little memo just with your official budget request?
I will.
That would be
Yeah.
great, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is health insurance.
Health insurance. So as I have discussed at other meetings, that health insurance is definitely a hot topic right now based on Blue Cross Blue Shield's approved, it was an average of 12.4%, but for the Platinum plan, which is what we're currently on, for for 2020 calendar year, it will be an increase of 14.4% on average for each level of premium. So with that information, it really, in order to be fiscally responsible, I needed to start exploring options, doing a little research. Health insurance is an important benefit that we offer, and it's one of, it's one of the few things that we can really attract people with, and we do, like many other towns, it's becoming more and more challenging to fill positions. So I did look at, I contacted many towns to find out ones that specifically had gone from Blue Cross Blue Shield, maybe in a couple of years ago, and then moved to MVP, and just to learn what their experiences were.
Sorry, so I think in previous years, MVP wasn't an option.
So MVP was an option, but beyond the last couple of years, it wasn't a good competitive option. So they didn't have the same network that was competitive with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Expanded
and
their network, right.
There were a lot of people had more negative experiences. Now, what I've learned, that has changed in the last couple of years. MVP has really worked to become competitive. They've joined with Cigna for their nationwide network, and they now have basically the same equivalent network as Blue Cross Blue Shield within Vermont, and then nationwide as well. The only differences that I've found, or I've been talking to a lot of people, and with their mental health pieces, there are some differences. They don't have the exactly equivalent coverage. Those seem to be the areas where I've pointed out if people had some comparisons where MVP fell short. But MVP's rates for 2020 are basically in line with where we are now, even slightly cheaper, what we're paying for calendar year 2019. So we have, many options. What I did, because it's such an important benefit and healthcare is an important issue for many folks, I did invite the entire staff to a presentation by MVP so that they could kind of understand what they offer, and then get their questions answered by individual consultations afterwards, just to ensure that their doctors are part of the network, are there any medications they're on or procedures that they have or whatever. So with that, I think our options are, one, we stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Platinum plan, but in order to be fiscally responsible, we change that employer-employee mix.
The mix right now is?
So right now for regular staff is a 90-10 split, and for union it's a 85-15. Other option, going to MVP for the same equivalent coverage that we have currently, would be what we're paying now. And other options are just to change that employee-employer mix regardless of which plan we choose. We could also offer options within each insurer, and so that maybe we decide, okay, we're going to pay this portion of a platinum level plan, and then the employee can choose.
Right, or take this plan and get a higher percentage.
And get a higher, yeah. So, those are some options on the table. I really want, I'd like to hear feedback from you if you guys have specific experiences with MVP versus Blue Cross Blue Shield thoughts. But, our open enrollment period ends December 15th, so we do need to make a decision as a town which direction we're going to go.
So from what I heard you say, the costs are about the same.
The costs are, so for MVP 2020 is about the same as what we're paying for Blue Cross Blue Shield in 2019.
Oh, and Blue Cross Blue Shield is going to go up.
Blue Cross Blue Shield is
By
going to go up
12% or
by
something like that.
14.4% on the plan level that we're currently on.
On the
Wow, I
platinum,
see.
it's
And
almost 15%.
MVP is not going to go up.
MVP is going to go up, but their increase gets us to where we are right now.
So they're
in
down here
2019.
now, so they're both going up.
Right.
Which would every year, and
Right.
then.
Yeah, I remember the Blue Cross Blue Shield and another one had asked for a huge rate increase.
Yes.
And that was it, the 14.5. But I guess MVP.
Well,
That's
it's an
true every
average.
year.
Yes,
So,
yes.
Well, this was unusually high.
Yeah, so it was an average of like 12.4%, depending on the plan level, but the platinum level plan is a 14.4% increase.
Okay, so if we went with MVP, they would basically have the same coverage, but we wouldn't have that huge increase.
We wouldn't have
would.
that increase.
Okay.
And again, whatever decision we make, we're only compelled to that for 1 year. And then there's
why
an
not-
open enrollment.
Why not just go with MVP? What would be the benefit of staying with Blue Cross
It's certainly
Blue
an
Shield?
option. I want to present the options
Yeah.
that we have, and we can discuss them, and
I mean, if it was a couple years ago, it would really impact our employees because it's not the same doctors, not the same,
Right.
and so now it's much closer or almost identical. So if we were to do that today, it would that kind of impact for the employees would be minimal
yeah.
compared to previous years.
Yeah.
But if we were to just sort of say, hey, we're going to MVP this year, that would save us some money. That would cause a little bit of problems for the employees, a little bit, because it's not 100% identical. And it's a 1 year savings, right? I mean, we'll save some this year, but they're both going to go up next year again, and now we will feel that full impact. So it will.
Well, next year's an unknown, right? We don't know what the rate increases
All right,
will
I'll
be.
put money on the table right now. It'll be over 8%.
Yes, but
both of them.
Yes, but this year, what I'm saying is Blue Cross Blue Shield has gone up more than MVP.
Right.
And we don't know if that will happen next year, or maybe Blue Cross Blue Shield won't go up as much and MVP will go up more, but we don't know that.
Okay. I think, in my opinion, it's just a 1 year savings because they're both going to continue to go up unless something's done differently.
Right.
But, I would think another option, so my experience has been with employers who may not cover as much, not 90%, somewhat less, let's say 70% or 80%. Then you offer more plans, and there's more thought by the employee of, well, if I take the Blue Cross, the MVP, I'm going to save a little more out of my pocket. So in our case, we don't really have that. I mean, they're going to save very little. They'll save a little bit by choosing a cheaper plan. So for us, we already say we give you the best plan, and you only have to pay 10%. So there's no incentive to say, hey, maybe you choose a different plan, and you could save a little bit.
Okay, if they were paying a higher percentage.
Yeah.
And so the reason, the benefits are very important. These equivalent jobs for municipal-based jobs in the private sector are paid much more, so
Right, yeah.
it's really, the benefits are important in attracting people to this.
Yeah, and I would agree that, it's a carrot to come
Yep.
work for more than likely less money. And those that see this as worthwhile, I think, this would be my opinion, would tend to be working here for the longer term. I'm going to pick, not a job that maybe gives me more money, but may not have the stability. I'll go here where I got stable benefits at any private job, in any particular year. That could change at anyone's whim, and it does change.
Well, in jobs I've had, it's pretty common that the insurer gets changed. Oh, we had Cigna last year, but
Right.
this year it's Blue Cross Blue Shield. Next year it's Health Net or whatever.
Yep.
So it seems to me that going to MVP this year is a good option for the town. I don't see any reason not to, actually.
I think that another piece of it too is, so here, it's a little different than private, I think, is that here, if I get a job and I get the platinum plan, I could get the same, they're paid for a whole family or just me. So, that's a huge difference. So in my present employer provides a set amount of money.
Oh.
So you're gonna get this amount of money and then go ahead and buy whatever plan you want. So, and it's, kind of covers a couple kind of a thing. If you're just a single person, you're making out pretty well. If you have a whole family, you're gonna have to put in a little more. So here, it's like, we're not rewarding, but if you have a family and you need the family plan, we're just automatically saying, okay.
Right.
And then what that does is, if there's two people getting employed at two different places, more than likely they're going to take this plan because it's pretty darn good.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole discussion that could be had on that
Right.
in terms of community and
Yeah.
individuals and
Absolutely.
what's really equitable and who are we carrying and what's
Right.
insurance really about, but this
So
isn't the
we-
place for
And so we
that.
do have an opt-out that so for folks who have insurance through their spouse or somewhere else, they can elect to opt out. And so currently it's been a $5,000 per year opt-out that they get broken up into their checks each, their weekly paycheck, so 52 a week.
Nice.
Yeah.
And there's been, I'd say in the last 10 years, a battle by companies offering this opt-out because in the end it saves money, right? So the amount that you get when you opt out has gone up.
So there was quite a lot of utilization of the opt-out. It's becoming decreased. I mean, we've got more people that have jumped on the plan and very few that are opting out now.
Because we have a good plan, and I'm happy that the town provides that, because we should as a society provide good health care.
Yeah.
So does anyone else have thoughts on this topic?
I mean, I think I would, unless there's a real reason that the impact would be, significant for any of our employees in switching plans, it seems like we ought to put that on the table.
So what I'd like to do, once I get your feedback tonight, is then go back to the staff, just like here's where we're leaning towards, and if they want to do any more checking into things, then they can come back, for a December 4th meeting and
that seems
feedback
reasonable,
can
yeah.
be.
So it'd be the platinum plan and the platinum plan, so the same plans. And so now you really dig in and you say, what kind of impact will this have?
Is there a reason we wouldn't give them, I know we talked about it the last time,
Yeah.
the option of choosing a lesser plan based on their copay or their percentage wouldn't be as high. I mean, whether or not they take it, I don't know, but
Right. Yep.
to have that option, there's a reason we didn't do it that way before.
Yeah, I think,
But-
administratively, there's more steps to it, but it's certainly an option. It's an option that, so there's a variety of feedback that I got. Some towns just do one plan and one insurer. Some towns do both insurers and provide that choice. Some towns do one insurer and provide a choice of all the, the different plans, or maybe two plans, or, it's across the board. There's a mix of ways to do it. So,
I think the savings, so if you're only paying 10%, then the savings between the, where are we going here? Gold, silver, gold, platinum. Let's just go right to a family. is 26, 25, 30 a month, and you're paying 10%. So you're paying $250 for that for a family. And if you said, I want to save a little money, and you go to the bronze, that's $1,500. So you'll save $100 a month. So you've saved $1,200. But if you use it, your deductible has gone from, I think this is it, it's from $150 to $6,000.
Yeah.
So why would you do it?
Right.
So who makes this final decision?
I'm looking for your input and what you guys want to do, and then again, I'll go back to the staff, give them another opportunity and let them know this is the direction that we're leaning, and give them an opportunity to just kind of be checking with their providers and see if there's any other questions that they have. And then at the December 4th meeting, I would be looking to you to make a clear-cut decision of which direction we're going to go.
Thank you.
Yep.
So what did we think? I'm sorry. So if we stayed on the current plan, how much would it increase?
The platinum.
If you're a family platinum, I know it's whatever it is. It's like
What's the percentage?
It's 14.4%.
And our
because I just
budget
did some
is,
divided by looked like $12 or $12.50 a paycheck or something,
Yeah.
something like that.
So, actually, I have another spreadsheet that I haven't, just for my own little figures I've been doing. I did, let's see.
Where's that insurance line had gone up. I think I circled it, so.
So Blue Cross Blue Shield for 2020 for a single is $900.13 per month. MVP 2020 is $784.52 per month. For a two-person, Blue Cross Blue Shield, $1,800.26. MVP, $1,569.04.
Okay.
A parent-child. Actually, the first one, the 1,800 was a parent-child. And then the next one is a two-person, employee and their spouse, is for Blue Cross, $1,737.25, and MVP, $1,514.12.
And that's total cost, that's the total cost that then gets split up between the town and the employee.
Exactly,
right?
that's the
Okay.
monthly. And family plan on Blue Cross for 2020, $2,529.37. MVP, $2,204.50.
So yeah, it's like $325 a month for a family plan.
So 14% increase on our budget this year is $34,000.
So
Depending on the
basically,
tax, not quite.
actually, the total increase is $37,665.52.
There you go.
Yep. If you take the number of people that we
Yeah.
have on the plan currently.
up.
Yep.
And we're running over that budget by just in the first quarter.
And again,
8%.
that's employee mix
Yeah,
changes
right.
and things that happen that will
That could go up and down a
likely
little
continue
bit.
to happen
Yeah.
each year. So,
Well, in my opinion, I'd go along with Mary Lee. Let's explore this and let employees look at it and dig into the details and come back and say, this is good or not. Is it going to impact them or not? I know at our company, we did it last year, and there were a few things that, were a little different for folks.
yeah.
But generally, I haven't heard and they have the choice. They can go one way or the other, but they went with the choice that looked like it was going to save a little bit. So it'd be good to survey them and say, those that changed, are you happy you saved a little money or not?
All right.
I think if the networks are the same, the doctors are all available, I don't see any reason we shouldn't do this. I mean, it's a 1 year, definitely gonna be a 1 year thing, but
Right.
Yeah,
it's still a lot of money.
yeah. So,
Any other thoughts, Aaron? No? Okay,
All right.
I commend you for seeing this and as an opportunity to just explore it anyways.
yeah. absolutely.
Appreciate the fact you do that.
All right. Next is the.
Where are we?
The sidewalk.
Sidewalk
Yep.
maintenance policy. So we've discussed this for, I think this will be the third meeting, maybe. We've talked about it for a while. I think you
Yeah.
brought it up last year, saying
Yeah.
it'd be nice to have a policy, so if somebody calls and says, you know, my sidewalk's not plowed, or it is plowed, or it tore up some dirt or something, you know, let's have a policy so we can know what to do.
Right. So I think when I brought this up to you guys a couple years ago, I had the draft of I had the Williston policy. Since then, a lot what you see in this draft is Williston, but Joy reached out to other towns too, and so there's some things that are added, some language from other towns or things that are specific for Hinesburg. But it's, you know, across the board, looking at all towns around, we actually, what we do today and what's in this is really above and beyond where a lot of towns do. And this just sort of sets a baseline. I think what our intent is to communicate that we do we do want a walkable community, but it's a way of meeting the challenges that we have and looking for some partnership with our community members. And so whether it's in, you know, some of the other developments and neighborhoods or other folks that enjoy the sidewalk network, how can we work together to continue to keep these as a good walkable community that gives people, you know, pedestrian access throughout our village, but we can overcome the challenges of, you know, that we face. And so I did, as I, you know, told you guys last time, I wanted to reach out to the different developments that are within the village. And I did not grab my battery backup. And just talk with, you know, have people who've operated the plows kind of really speak to the challenges within each of those communities. And so we did that. I was only able to get someone from the Thistle Hill community that came at first, and then I had another meeting with some people from Creekside. And so we've gotten feedback. At first, it felt like everybody felt like this was a good working plan, a good baseline established. I think we have gotten some feedback since then. I think after people have had more time to review, that we have different perspectives that have been shared. And so it's really important to be able to hear both sides and to understand what those concerns are so that we can work together as a community to figure this out and establish something that we all can understand and we can speak to.
And I think another reason we looked at saying this is important to establish, whatever it is, as development happens, the expectation there'll be far more sidewalks to maintain. You know, there's nothing being built in the village that doesn't connect in some way for walkability, which is important and part of our town plan, a critical part of the village.
Right. Yeah, and so this is really important. Why I really want to get this established now is for that reason, because of other developments. So this is feedback that at our department head meetings, I have all the departments kind of talking. We start out with planning and zoning and talking about the development or things that are on the table, and then get feedback from highway, from, you know, utilities and police and fire, just to talk about how that operationally looks. And, you know, so this has been a perfect opportunity. So operationally, we're hearing from the folks who are actually operating these sidewalk plows as they navigate through the sidewalk network. Not all the sidewalks are equal. They're from different generations of time. Mm-hmm. And each community, you know, we have some where there's fences that are right up on the sidewalk. We've got, you know, different trees and things and challenges within communities. So it was an opportunity to continue doing this, but bring people, partners into the discussion, and let's see how we can work together to overcome these challenges and continue this level of service that we have been providing and want to continue to provide. But it's a baseline that's established so that the expectation is clear, and at any point that we can, raise the bar higher, we will, but this is the baseline, and it's a document that we can, when we receive those calls, we can direct people to folks to this document, so.
Or hold ourselves accountable to the
Hold
document.
ourselves
Yeah.
accountable, absolutely.
So a couple of people who have comments. So I'm just we'll come to them. So the board has gone through this a couple times. A few changes have been made. Are there any questions or things about what is now being presented that doesn't seem like that was the direction we started to go in? And there's, along with the policy, there's the map that shows the level of care, I guess, for different, or the criticality. And, yeah, I think that's,
So I was trying to remember why we placed the two, Creekside and Thistle Hill, into low priority and not medium at least or high.
So
was just trying to
the
remember what that
discussion of that
conversation was.
is trying, and how it functions now is trying to get the path to the schools
yeah.
cleared, those main routes to the schools. So that's why the ones that are listed are the first priority. So those are the ones that are gonna be done first, and then when they make the pass back, then they're gonna go to that, the Commerce Street, the medium priority. And then the lower priorities doesn't mean that they're not gonna happen, it's just, that's sort of the order of operation of how.
I think it's the wrong, priority is the wrong term.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
it's more of
yeah,
the order
yeah.
of how
Yeah,
it's.
it's not a matter of
It's-
prioritization, it's just a matter of when it's gonna get done.
Right.
Yeah.
They all can't get done at the
Right,
same time.
Right.
yeah.
And really, the only reason Commerce Street is in green, and the map's kind of new, Mr. Barr just did it,
Yeah,
is because that's just kind of the cut through.
yeah, and it's just looking at it, so for, we, worked with Bart, how it functions to be most efficient going through. So there's some, roads that are on there that wouldn't normally be part of the route, but as long as they're going there, it makes sense to pick up those two. So it's the most efficient way. I think, and Tom, you can speak to this, on a good day in a storm, it takes about 4 hours to make a complete pass. And then if it's, really deep, heavy snow, there's more challenges, so
Couple
it
days.
takes a lot
Multi-day,
longer.
yeah.
And that's one full pass through
Yeah,
right.
everything.
So if I lived in Thistle Hill or Creekside and I saw low priority, I wouldn't like it. So I would change that language.
Yeah,
My question is why, I get it's a cut through, but why is Commerce Street, which isn't all that walked,
Exactly.
a higher, I don't want to use the term priority, than the neighborhoods where kids walk to go catch the bus?
That's exactly my point.
That's my other question.
We didn't have the map last time, but we
Yeah.
had this listed in the
Right.
policy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but now that you see it, it's like, wait a minute.
Well, I can tell you why, actually. Because if you're going to do the main arteries along 116, along Mechanicsville, it's just your natural route that you're going to take. So it doesn't make any sense to just bypass the Commerce Street sidewalk
To get on a
You might as
sidewalk
well
you've already
plow it.
plowed, yeah.
on your way down through.
Oh, I see, because you're coming down and then you're cutting over to
Right,
the
depending on
Creekside
the route.
neighborhood, so you just cut, okay,
Right.
that makes sense.
I mean, conceivably, you could have, I don't know, a better word than priority.
But I-
First
I- I
plow,
definitely need to-
first immediate plow,
pass,
first
second
pass,
pass.
second pass, and then you could make Commerce Street second pass along with the other ones, because it's gonna be done at the same time anyways.
Basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would just,
116 doesn't have a color.
yeah, I would just give it first pass, second pass, put Commerce in first
Is that
pass,
fine?
No, it doesn't.
second pass,
But
everything
that
else.
is
Yeah,
plowed.
it's, well, the map is kind of
the
new,
route.
so.
Yeah, right, so I'm just
Right.
asking.
When I look at it,
That's
instead of-
plowed. Well,
Yeah.
and where there are sidewalks anyway.
So it's maybe
It
instead
is
of,
been
Start out
plowed, I
of the
know
old
that.
fire station?
Yeah, it's planned.
The plows start out of the old fire station?
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah,
What they
Oh,
tend to
that's
do
why,
is, since
okay.
I've done the route,
yeah.
is they'll leave the old fire station. They'll go either on the west side of 116 or the east side of 116, depending on the operator. They'll go toward the school, kind of end at Papa Nick's. They'll come back, and then they'll do the other side of 116, down in front of Town Hall, and then basically on to Mechanicsville Road,
Up to the,
up that way. And under this plan, they'd come back, and I guess they would do the sidewalk below Thistle Hill on the east side of Mechanicsville Road. And then they go down Commerce Street and along in front of the from Bristol Bakery to the fire station and up through there.
Yeah.
And then hit Creekside and then back to Thistle Hill or something?
Yeah, or whichever way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it really depends on how much snow there is. If it's a reasonable storm and you can get in there and, 4, 5, 6 inches and clean them all up, they'll just follow where they currently are, they'll just do that. But it's the big heavy storms where it really is an issue. You just don't have the time to clear the main arteries so kids can get to school from their developments and then do each individual neighborhood. There's just not time to ensure that the main arteries get done within a few hours. So that's kind of
But they're done.
call it the priorities map, but they're not really priorities. It's just
I
which
mean,
gets done first.
Yeah, and I was up, I think, at around 6 in the morning going through town whenever it snowed, and they were out, working. So it's not like
Yeah.
we're not starting at 7:30 if there's a storm. They want to get it done for the kids to get to school.
Right. And,
If school isn't been closed.
within that draft, it's 24 hours after the end of a storm event. That's just, again, it's a baseline, but it's so, we also have to work in conjunction with the highway removal of, roads, because the sidewalks are very close to the road, so when they make their pass, the snow goes back on the sidewalk. So it's good to wait until after that more efficiently.
Yep.
So there's a timing piece in that and a connection to that as well.
All right, so are there any comments that you want to? Maybe you should say who you are and then.
Sure. Do you need me to
You're
stay?
welcome to come sit in the guest
If
room,
you
honestly,
want,
but if
yeah.
you don't want to, you're fine back there too.
Okay, great. So my name is Carrie Harlow, and I have lived in Hinesburg since 1996. Lived in the village since 2006. And so seen a few winters. Thanks, Tom. Seen a few winters, seen some, the way sidewalks are cared for in town. And my first blush as I read the new policy was, as a town, we were setting our standards really low. And I understand that there are issues with equipment and there's issues with having personnel available. But it read to me like we'll get to it, but if there's an equipment problem, we won't. We don't really have to take care of your property. I personally, it's not tearing up a little bit of dirt. We have swaths that's this wide of turf torn up in our neighborhood, and I have had natural gas caps torn up and lost. We had to call the town and say, hey, can you replace these? And so seeing that that's not the town's responsibility in here made me rather nervous. I have a water shutoff valve in my front yard that's about 18 inches from the sidewalk. And if that gets hit, that's my deal. So that bothered me because I feel like there can be care taken. I feel like we've written this policy in response to the fact that we're having equipment issues and we're relying on people who have other jobs in town to do the snow clearing. And I feel like that's pushed this policy as opposed to solving the problem and then writing a policy. I feel like it's a little backwards. The other thing that's really important to me, I walk these sidewalks a lot, is there's a real problem with access to crosswalks. And I know that that's an equipment problem, that the snow removal equipment cannot get in the right angle. But really, we should have crosswalks and access to sidewalks cleared so that people aren't having to navigate that in the winter. That seems a minimum to me. And I don't see that addressed in here. And then the last thing I don't see addressed in here is there's a whole bunch of, if we've got an equipment problem, we're not gonna get to it. If it's less than 4 inches, we're not going to be clearing snow. We're not gonna do a clear pavement policy, that's fine. But nowhere in here do we talk about being a community And what will we do as a community when those things happen? And I think if we're gonna have a policy, we should address that. It's not just, it's not gonna happen, because people still need to get where they're going, and we're still the same community, and people still need to walk. So those were my first blush concerns about this as I read it. I am deeply appreciative for the town to, that they clear the roads and that they clear our sidewalks. We can do better. Thanks.
So I guess to speak to that language again is taken from other towns. And it's not a change of practice from what we're doing today. It's just sort of establishing that baseline. What is different is really trying to reach out to the community and partner up. Let's look at these challenges. Let's talk about them together, and how can we solve them and continue this sidewalk network. So within some of those areas, there are sections that we can't do because of the challenges that are there. So we're reaching out to those folks. How can we work together? Maybe somebody has a walk behind snowblower that they can do that little segment. There are areas, and I think what you're speaking to along the sidewalks, when the snow happens, just in that equipment alone, the view is very different. So you can lose track of the sidewalk really easily. And if the snow's covering it, you really don't know. So you're doing your best guess. There's so many areas, especially in the developments, where the sidewalk curves and goes around things. And so when you're plowing, you're just following where you've been, and so sometimes you do lose track. So there's no intent there. They're trying their best. So one thing that we could do, partner, another suggestion is maybe folks can help us, marking out those sidewalks, putting markers in. That could be something that we could work together as a community. The intent of this is not to set a lower bar or to not provide the service. We value a walkable community. We've been saying that for years, and we want to continue that, but let's partner up as a community. How can we keep this going? But we also want to learn from the challenges we have, so we can provide that feedback to planning and zoning as we look at the next developments that are happening to the north and other places in Hinesburg. So that's.
I just think if you're doing this policy, that there are gaps in it right now. That if we're truly wanting to say that we want to continue to be a walkable community and we want to look for solutions, we need this living document to reflect that.
So can I expand on what you said?
Sure.
In terms of how it's very difficult to see when you're running this machine, especially if it's snowing. It's very, very, very difficult. And I get that lawns get torn up and caps might get torn off, but these gentlemen running this machine, they don't walk those every day. They don't know where these things are. So the damage aspect of it, unless they're just being foolish, which is not the case, that's a tough one. That'd be a tough one for the town to take on. If things need to be marked, landowners could mark them. You brought up crosswalks, especially in your neighborhood. The crosswalks nothing is square. Every crosswalk has a corner before it. And with that machine and the trees, it's just impossible to get those crosswalks. So it might be an opportunity for the neighbors down there to shovel those crosswalks or use their walk-behind snowblowers. Because with these machines, if it's the tool cat or a different type of riding machine, you're not going to be able to make those turns. So that's just one of the challenges that we have. There's more significant challenges even on Thistle Hill with the steep hills and the narrowness and the death-defying slopes that are there. But the crosswalks in your neighborhood are a big challenge.
But this last storm, the crosswalk at 116 didn't get done. You have to get across that street, and that's got to be done.
I appreciate everything you're saying, and I think you're right. You could look at this policy and say it just seems to be kind of one-sided, sort of the town side, and that's certainly not the intention. But I came in today. I said we got this sidewalk thing, and I said, hey, by the way, we just got a crosswalk in front of the church. Just got put in a couple weeks ago, And I went to go walk it, and it hadn't been plowed. So I had mentioned it, and they said, geez, the machine can't really do that. And so I said, well, gee, we have volunteers who shovel the church. We'll just add that to our shoveling list. Now, so that's where the community can sort of help out too. And, when the machine did break down last year, we had volunteers who, filled in. So it would be good, perhaps the policy could be adjusted. We do want to be a walkable community. But the expectation that, the town can do everything is, it has to be set down to reasonable, and we can discuss what reasonable is. But if we did, if we engaged the community too and said, hey, we're doing the best job we can, and if you went out there while you had your snow blower and, cleaned up a little bit around these areas, that would be great. I came from a town where if you had a sidewalk in front of your house, you shoveled it.
Yeah, that's what
And they would come and give you a fine if you didn't. So we're not there. But, so I think it's a balance of both of those things. So.
And I certainly don't think that I'm expecting things to be perfect.
Right.
But I think the policy as it's written, we've kind of forgotten about that.
Yeah.
And I think in a vacuum, people might not necessarily think to do that.
Yeah.
To step up and do that. And so who will that person be?
I mean,
or will we all wait for someone to do it?
That could be in part of the policy, that this is a, community effort, and here's what the town is trying to do. And, we also encourage landowners and stuff to help with us, including letting us know if things aren't quite right, including marking if you have, hidden obstacles. Here's a good way to mark them. Put up one of those fiberglass poles and then take it down in the spring.
It's not too many.
Yeah, okay, right. You don't need a whole fence line of them. Right, but that might not be a bad thing to add too, so.
And I wonder if it wouldn't actually be safer for both the plow operator and the people who are walking to have the homeowners in the communities shovel their own sidewalks, to have that machine go through where you can't see and it's not that straight. I'm not sure that that's even a good idea. So it's just another side.
Bill?
Community that I grew up
Yes.
in, we also had to shovel our own walks, our own
I'm
sidewalks.
just curious if there happens to be a certain size of crosswalk that the snowplows actually can accommodate. Because if there was some type of standard and sense
Right.
like that, we can put that forward to, at
Planning
least the new
commission.
communities
Yeah.
that come in.
It's not the size, it's the way they interact at the intersection. Because they don't go straight off the corner. Like if you're walking down the sidewalk, you would expect it just to go across the next street. It doesn't. It always turns right or left and has a jag in it and then goes across. So nothing is straight. If it was, it would be far easier.
So something that is straighter is better, although of course the challenge is you've got ADA regulations that you gotta meet. And a lot of times crosswalks have to they're trying to get two different intersections or two different directions at the same time, which is oftentimes a challenge. But that's an interesting bit of feedback that the straight happens to be good.
I know some of that's what they're looking at in the design standards from the planning commission for some of the is standardizing some of this stuff for that reason. One of the reasons, right? We talked about how close are the trees, how close is the fence, how close is, to help facilitate some of that.
And also where to have actually these sidewalks and to try to create areas of snow storage.
Yeah.
That's been a big discussion point as well.
And I did talk with Alex today and brought some other recommendations for the planning commission to discuss. And based on, currently we don't have restrictions for fences other than height restriction of 8 feet. But within the village area where there's sidewalks, let's talk about maybe some setbacks so that we don't have those conflicts for future developments. Things like that. Let's try to overcome these challenges, but work together as a community and how we can do this. And learn from where we are now and make those improvements in the future developments.
So just to comment on the question about who would do it, if it was the residents that would go in and do the intersection, who in my neighborhood might do that? So some of the options are, I know in mine, I'm over by Thistle Hill, we've got a small homeowners association of about 7 homes. And we always do okay, well, who's gonna mow the common land? Okay, it's you, so you're gonna reduce your fee, or we pay you out of the homeowner's expenses for that. So who's gonna do the snow around the fire hydrant? Hey, you're closest, and you know what I mean? Those are some things you can do to assign responsibility, or assign that house is responsible for that, and that's what it means. Yeah, it gets complex, but it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, there's no easy, but I understand exactly what you're saying. I've had a fence taken down, and I don't really care about the lawn too much, but you know, I know what you're saying. I don't know if maybe it's
I'm okay with the lawn, I'm just nervous about like
gas caps, and
gas
I
caps and
totally
water
agree with
shut off,
that.
that's a little nerve-wracking.
I don't know, maybe
So I guess what I'm
stake their
hearing
sidewalks or something.
is, one is we might consider changing the language, the term priority, and then maybe including Commerce Street, giving it the same timing as the 2 neighborhoods for now.
Just get rid of the middle category.
Yeah. And then, and I'd be happy to work with Joy about just looking at the language, and maybe we can incorporate some kind of a community piece into it. And, you know, state, hey, takes a community to keep the sidewalks, and the town is going to do the best job they can, and here's our policy on trying to make it good. But, you know, we seek, you know, these are troublesome areas, and we encourage the public to help us in this process.
So I just want to clarify it, right, for everybody, plus for my own edification. So the red line, right, which is the main routes, and then we say the green and purple now is probably the same color. So is the main reason we're doing that is if it's a really heavy snowstorm and I'm going to do the red, like if I just mapped out what my path would be, we're saying it's critical to keep the red clear, right? So if you're plowing, do I keep, you know, if the buildup has been so much since the last pass, is it more important for me to
Go back to red.
redo the red line than go up into the purples? You get what I'm saying?
Could be.
Yeah.
So that's
Could be, there are
you know,
storms
Yeah.
like that.
So, I mean, and if you look at it, I mean, we've got to give it some level of priority, right? You can't go and do your friend's house first before you go. And, you know, the fact is, if we have a really big storm and you needed to walk through Thistle Hill or Creekside, you know, there's traffic, but there's not nearly as much traffic as there is in the middle of 116. So if you had to walk in the road for a little bit to go to the pharmacy, you could do it. And but you're not going to be able to walk from Thistle Hill to the school, the CVU, in the middle of the road for that length with that amount of traffic.
That makes complete sense.
There are a couple lines missing. There should be a red line from, I guess it would be the west side of the green line along 116 in front of the PD.
Right.
Tom, my understanding is that gets done some other way, unless that
Maybe
I
the
asked.
walk behind, really?
Yeah, I asked about that today.
I don't think it's the walk behind.
It seems to get done, and not by the town.
Except for when Tom's driving the plow.
Except for maybe when you're driving it.
I haven't driven
well,
it for a
we
few
should-
years, but
Yeah, we should look at
Well,
that.
it's
And
used
we
to
have the
it.
Riggs Road now,
Yep.
so we might want to add that on there.
yeah.
Yeah.
The new north.
Oh, did I forget
From Commerce
that
Street to
Yeah.
Riggs
But
Road.
also
Thank you.
from Creekside around Giro's Body Shop.
It's there.
It's
back toward-
there.
That one's
It's
marked.
in purple,
Yeah,
but I think when I talked to Bart originally, that was gonna be a red, like the main
Yeah,
thoroughfares.
yeah, that makes sense.
Right, from the neighborhood itself to the,
If you're going to school, that's where
right,
you're going to go.
that would be another section that
Yeah.
would probably be a top priority.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, I'm not gonna speak
Yeah.
for them, but
yeah, okay, we can talk about it.
And if you zoom, scroll up a little bit, I was curious that no, the other way. Down.
Down.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is as far as it goes.
Yeah, the other route. I was just looking at Lyman do we do that, one from Lyman to, no, that's not typically.
we don't go into
to,
Lyman.
from, by the park to, Lampman's, that little back
Oh,
walkway.
yeah.
I
No.
think
No, I
sometimes
think
it
Brian
gets
does it.
done.
No, I
Oh,
think
Brian
Brian
does
does
it,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there's your community there.
Yeah.
It goes around the park, from
He's gotta
Lampman's
make sure his
to Lyman's.
Oh, I didn't know he
customers can
did
get
it.
to his
Yeah.
store.
Yeah. Okay. So, anything else?
Unless-
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go ahead, please, do.
I think most everything's been covered, but I'm Sarah Lovitz. I've only been in Hinesburg for 3 years, and I do live in the Creekside community. And I hadn't heard about the policy until just a couple days ago. And basically, I just wanted to say that I appreciate that there is a policy and that the service is provided by the town. I did grow up in a small town in Maine and walked to school every year except for one, and the town did plow the sidewalks as well. So I appreciate living in a walkable community. My household, I have 1 and 4-year-olds, and I walk to pick up my son from nursery school 3 days a week through the winter. So it's imperative that I have access, particularly along 116. That's my main concern. And so I appreciate you adding that piece that connects Creekside to behind Giro's. Because sometimes I've sometimes taken the driveway through the storage facility. When I couldn't pass through. But so I guess, just want to say I appreciate that there's a policy that you're going to continue to provide the service. The only issues that I saw were potentially small sequential storms building up. So if it's not done at 4 inches and then there's maybe another storm, and probably you'd look at the forecast and say, okay, we've got to do it because there's going to be another one coming behind. But that's where there's sometimes been a problem. And then that Lampman's intersection with 116 and Charlotte Road, sometimes the snowbanks are like halfway, up to my hip, and it's really hard to push kids through that. So I don't know if the plow does ever go back through, but just, highlighting that as a priority, because I don't know who could help, because it's like cement, after a while to get through. So I guess, those were kind of my main comments, and I appreciate adding the community language, and also just being aware that now that the plow, knowing, I think, and maybe that's, I know you have had these meetings and I wasn't part of them, but the community did meet, the association met last night and we talked more about it, which is why I wanted to be here to hear them myself. But just, identifying where are those points that we definitely need the community to step up, and that one outside the church, I was trying to cross with my kids the other day and went, oh no, and I think a motorist saw me panicking as I, kind of not panicking, but, as I went to try to go around it and stop for me, but I wasn't sure that someone would, since it's a new intersection. So, I think just identifying where you need community input and help in order to maintain that level of service, because I think there are other people like me, we're a one-car household, and so that is the only way that I can access the school. So.
I appreciate your comments, and it reminds me, and I think it reminds all of us, that in our town plan, and our goal is to make this village a walkable village. And the fact that you're not, this is me talking personally, the fact that you choose to have one car and walk rather than get in a car and drive from there to there, the benefits are huge, small and very large. So that, reminds us why we do try to maintain the sidewalks and make it as walkable as possible. And I think if somebody saw somebody at the church, shoveling that little section, the person on the other side might say, oh, maybe I'll do that side too. So it doesn't take much.
My 4-year-old likes to take the shovel with us sometimes and, do a little bit. But.
So how would we go about, I think the neighborhood chip in or pitching in is a great idea. Maybe Carrie, you're involved in your neighborhood, but, maybe talk with Bart and whoever else runs the machine and just ask what are
the problem areas that are difficult.
Obviously I've run the machine, but it's been a few years, they run it far more
So
often.
that's what I tried to do when I had representatives from each community. And so Bart was able to speak, to the challenges, and you as well. But I think we need to continue that, so more people, if each of those associations then share it with all of their members, let's learn what the, other issues are and pass on the challenges and how we can make that work. So really appreciate that you both are here and that if you can, spreading the word.
Yeah.
I did just have one more question in terms of the future development too, because there will be a lot more sidewalk coming. And is there anything that those developments will have to do, in, I don't know, in terms of like, would we need to get another plow and who's gonna pay for that? And are there any type of like fees that you would collect from a new large scale development that could go towards making sure you have an employee and a plow and so that it doesn't become a bigger problem?
Right, and so we talked about this, they're required to put the sidewalks in. Then we could say, hey, and also contribute to the plow to maintain it. But, that's a good point. We will, we know we're gonna double the amount of sidewalks.
Right.
If all the development goes in, roughly.
And
So that's twice as much work and maybe another piece of equipment.
And other ways of handling it is we have impact fees, so for police and fire, but you could also have the impact fees for transportation, sidewalks, other types of services, so.
It's a good
Or
idea.
even if the developments don't come in, right? We got a new section of sidewalk going up 116. I think
Right.
there's plans to continue that up at some point. So, right, we're gonna grow even if there is no development on
Yeah.
the sidewalks anyway, so.
Not to mention on the southern part of the village,
Mhm.
going down to Meadow Mist.
Yeah,
That's another piece of sidewalk.
that's planned to go in.
Yeah.
And it's important that it goes in. 'cause-
So, so the additional equipment we can save money for, we can get money for, the challenges will continue to be in every community across the nation is hiring staff and finding folks to fill positions. So we go for a long time with vacant positions, and a position like this, where it's a seasonally part-time and sort of on-call, is even much more challenging. So as you're spreading words in your community, if anyone's interested in being a winter sidewalk maintainer and, operating these plows, we are looking. We've
Yeah.
been looking for a long time. We've had, in the past, we had someone that was retired, it worked out really well. But then when they were no longer able to do it, it left vacant for a while. So we've been trying to make it work within our existing small framework of staff. But that brings someone from one department out to the sidewalks and then leaves the other, the rest of their department short, so.
Has the town thought about contracting with a company to do it?
Those are certainly options that we've looked at, and when our plow was broken down last year, I was calling around to see if anybody could do that for us, and I wasn't able to get anyone that could cover it, so. But it's something we'll be continually looking at just as a backup plan, or perhaps we find that we can't do this, and so maybe that's what we look to.
We don't mow our properties, so
Right.
we hire that out.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
for the same reasons, I would guess.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any more thoughts, or?
So, and basically, whatever we do, once, hopefully that we can get this established and approved, we're gonna do it through this winter season and reevaluate, and then talk with everyone again and look for feedback from all of the community. See what tweaks we need to make to it, and again, so it should be an active document, a living document that we can adjust as time goes on.
And we add sidewalks.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. That was good discussion.
And Alex and Mitch, you'll be shoveling the crosswalks out front for us?
He didn't jump up and say yes, did he?
Actually, I think I've seen what Cheryl has done a few times. And
Yeah, we've all
Yeah.
been
we've
switching
all done a
around.
couple of different things like that.
We wear lots of hats.
All right, next item on the agenda. Falling a little behind, but that's okay. That was great discussion. Is CSWD MOU and adjustments to the site plan, which we've known about a little bit, a little expansion outside of the area for a fence movement and to allow plowing, and then a ground mount solar array. And we have in our packet, I think, just the latest iteration of that, and then the MOU,
Yeah.
which has been marked up. And who marked that up?
So, and so Josh, Mitch and I, since Mitch just got back from vacation, we had a chance to look at the MOU. And so we did, and I've made some track changes on this one that we can discuss tonight and bring that back. So this is something that we'll continue to discuss, and the Wi-Fi is not very good down here, so it's.
And maybe you guys can introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Josh Tyler with the Chittenden Solid Waste District. I'm the Director of Operations. Doug Goulette from Lamoureux and Dickinson. We were involved with the site design
Okay.
for the drop-off center. Doug's been the design engineer, and then Aaron Stewart in back, Stewart Construction. He's the one that we contract with to build the
Yeah.
facility. So if there's any real technical or, questions, we'll ask Aaron
All right.
as far as schedule looks like.
So we'll get going, but I will say, we're quite excited that it's coming back to Hinesburg. And that's the good news. Now we'll just work through the final details, I guess.
Yeah, and this is, as Renee had said, was expected. One of the parts of the DRB review process was that we were going to come back and just kind of have the final placement of our perimeter fence, and also kind of the final specs on our solar panel, because the solar panel, as the design plans were presented at the DRB, was a block. So I'll just jump right into the perimeter fence. We haven't, from our final design plans that we presented to the DRB to now, we haven't changed them any. There are 2 bump outs that were highlighted in the DRB review, and those are for just storage of snow. So in the event there is a storm, we do contract with private plowers that will come out and clear the site, and we just wanted to make sure that we had space to put the snow that was off the actual active areas of the site, just to keep the public
So
safe.
since it's fenced in, you can't plow it outside the fence.
Right,
Yeah.
and we don't want to damage our fences, so just when we brought our final design to our maintenance crew, they said, hey, you should put some snow storage in there, so we did. And that's again what we brought to the DRB, and the DRB, one of the options was to just come to the select board and present it to you. It's our opinion that those 2 snow storage areas are outside of any kind of operations of the town themselves. They're fairly innocuous, and they will provide us with the ability to put snow in those places in the event we do get a heavy winter.
Just for a little bit of clarity, basically the DRB had the understanding that CSWD had a certain specific area that they were going to be doing their new facility in. These bump outs went beyond it. So what the DRB did was provide 2 different options. One, you can bring everything in back to that particular area, or come back to the select board to get approval to utilize those areas.
So Mitch is right. There was a disconnect in communication from the start. That big dashed line that you see there that kind of goes through the green and the red dots. Thank you, Renee.
Yeah.
That was shown on an old Krebs and Lansing plan for the town garage as a possible pavement limits for a future drop-off center. They also included grading, which went beyond that line. So we were never, when we started the project, under the understanding that there was a do not cross this line on any plan, in the Krebs plan. We were not made aware of that, even through the DRB process. It was only after we went to the DRB that we were instructed that, we went beyond the quote limits. So our pavement area does not go beyond the pavement limits of what the conceptual plans, I guess I would call it, the Krebs and Lansing design. This is a spot that, as you can see, the fence goes.
And that's the dotted gray line, the fence?
No, the dotted gray line is the limit of what Krebs showed as a potential paved area. So, when we went through the design, we tweaked that, obviously. And in most cases, we actually have less impervious paved area than what Krebs had envisioned. This is one spot that, however, the fence and the solar panel goes beyond that
that conceptual.
Okay, so the line with the squares, that's showing the fence, the bump
Attaches in the
out.
boxes, yeah, that's where the fence
Okay.
goes, and
Yeah.
that little bump out, that's also our snow storage area.
Yep.
And then we also are gonna put our solar panel.
So there's other portions of the site where the fence does the
And so
same
you
thing.
see it on the bottom left too, you see the fence outside of the gray area. And
Well,
that's
It's
the,
coming back. Here.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we really didn't hold that gray dash line as anything of any real relevance.
Yeah, and so Doug, I know you weren't involved in the history of this, you just came into it late.
Right.
So that area that's the gray dashed line was actually delineated by the person who was in the role before Josh. And so there was an area that, we talked about it through the planning phase of the last few years. And finally, we just asked, what do you need? Show us on the map, and it'll be overlaid into the plans. And so that is the area that was delineated.
And I'll just add that there wasn't any misgivings by the DRB of actually utilizing this additional area, just
Right.
this particular step just needed to
It's a
happen.
change.
Yeah, to come through this
So I
select.
think it was just a bit of a miscommunication through the process, but we're here now.
Yeah,
So with this plan, the plan that was approved by the DRB has the solar panel that was 11 by 16. That was our best guess at the time. That's outlined in red. Through the actual design and construction now, there's a solar panel that's proposed that's 12 by 20, and that's the green shaded area there. So it's a tight fit between the fence and the U-shaped thing that you see there is a yard waste
yeah, it's
bunker.
a drop-off area.
Yeah, for the yard waste, that could be pulled forward a little bit now that we know what the shape of the solar panel is.
And so all we have here really is this map of this corner. Are there other places where the fence is outside of the?
In the original letter that I'd sent, there were some attachments that had the overall plan that indicated there's another southern area that has a similar bump out like you see there, where the fence is. It's below our tip wall, and it's just another spot that made sense for us to put snow storage at.
The DRB's concern with that location was, you were doing the Beecher Brook flow restoration.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that there might be conflicts, but basically that project's done now, and there aren't any conflicts with the fence isn't up yet, obviously. We had to go through this step, but
So I did actually reach out to Jessica Luisos, and based on the plan that you sent, this one that we're just looking at, I'll just open up her email. She said it was hard to tell from the plan if they changed any of the if this would change any of the stormwater features. It's not, all right. It's not working, but anyway, so she would like to kind of discuss that with you, just to make sure.
Right.
Yep.
But since that work is done now, it'll be easy to avoid conflicts. We'll just.
It's done for right now. There'll be more phases coming in the spring. Yep.
Right, they have a whole bunch of plantings that they have to
Yeah,
come back
there's-
for.
Much more to do.
Do you mind going back to the picture of the solar array proposed layout? I just want to get,
Yep.
because I think the gray, I'll wait till it comes up, the gray area must be, that's the site.
That's our asphalt.
That's where the
our pavement.
asphalt
That's where the asphalt's
Yeah,
gonna be.
and painted parking spaces.
Okay, so the
and
part
such.
that's extending out is the upper part, not of the green box. I don't want to say north,
Yeah,
I guess
actually,
it would be, you know what I mean, towards the water.
Right here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
North is
Sorry,
North is-
just my ammo
Yeah.
here, but so, just so you know, this is the northwestern section, so the town garage is up here. And the road into the garage is right here, so
Yeah.
you would make that corner. Our site, the bulk of our facilities, we've got a couple compactors down here in our design plans. And so this right here is the fence, this little dash that comes out like that.
Yeah.
And this is our snow storage area, and then this was our original proposed placement of our solar panel. And, when we got the actual, when it was ordered and came in, they said, no, it's 12 by 20. I said, okay. So then we fit it into here to make sure that it would work. And, our board had presented to us when we went into the design phase that, green infrastructure was important to the district, so we've got a heat pump in this solar array for what we could do there. So that's kind of how it fits in. Parking would be here. We've got a pole barn over here. So this is just kind of addressing this feature per the DRB requirement.
And Renee, does this also affect the stormwater of the Beecher Creek
So that's what Jessica, who's
But it's not
mentioned.
just this, there's one on the southern side too.
Right, there's a larger one
Right.
on the southern part of
Yeah.
that. But Jessica Luisos and, well, we had a meeting out on site.
there,
Okay.
And talked that particular one out. And again, as what was said before, the real concern was potential conflicts between this construction and the Beecher Brook
Yeah, so
stream
my question
restoration.
is, there are two bump outs, are both bump outs affecting that Beecher Brook restoration, stormwater restoration?
No, the matter of fact, there was actually some little tweaks that were actually done in the field to adjust it to make sure that it wouldn't. And part of what you're going to be looking at today is, in the memorandum of understanding, is that the fences are going to be beyond and taking into some of the highway maintenance garage drainage swales. And CSWD is agreeing in their memorandum of understanding to actually maintain those particular swales that will be inside their fence, as well as provide a gate to allow access to a different drainage structure as well.
Okay, great, it's great to have the communication between these three different working projects.
Yeah.
Pastor, I'm sure Mike has seen these. Are there any concerns or impacts with the slight bumping out of the fence line and whatnot?
I haven't heard anything specific from him. I did send this to him as well. He was gone this afternoon, so if I get feedback, I'll let you know.
This is just a minor thing, I'm not too worried about it, but was there any concern of, with the bump out getting closer to the water in terms of stormwater runoff and that type of stuff into the water system?
You mean as far as the solar array where it is?
Yeah,
or-
just, I know it's a solar array, so I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but I'm just saying with the additional, I don't know if it's gonna be asphalt or grass. Is there
Right.
any
It just
concern of it,
explains.
you're getting closer if it's
The
not
bump out
permanent?
is
Okay.
not asphalt.
Yeah.
In fact, there's less asphalt than the original design.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the stormwater features or any kind of drainage or stormwater flow goes to the outside of the site and then down to a storm pond that's actually disconnected from the Beecher Brook
Oh,
project.
okay.
So this particular zone really is actually removed from anything that, would,
Yeah.
as far as stormwater is concerned, would even influence it,
Yeah.
But, I do understand your guys' point, like, hey, let's ask this question.
Well, Tom, just clarifying, there is actually some stormwater that's going to come from the parking lot into this particular area. But I think just simply, it's not really a solid piece that's actually down there. You did provide this detail as far as how that is going to function. So how many of these support legs going across the 20 feet is it actually going to have?
It's gonna have floor, it's gonna have, it's just gonna be on a four-legged frame. And the four-legged frame was actually gonna be within the original design of that 16 by 11, so it's not a concrete pad that's gonna be supporting it, it's
Right.
literally just legs into the ground.
Yeah.
And so that's why we didn't have a lot of concern about the stormwater, because
And
the
what are
grass is
these-
still there.
What are these basically 8 legs going to have? What type of materials? Is it just?
I think it's 4
It's
legs.
4 legs? So no, it's going to be 2 sets of 2? Or?
So it's a helical pier that gets drilled into the ground, so it's a steel leg. So it gets drilled into the ground, and then there's a unistrut structure that supports the
We have
panels.
this particular one that's over here. So this is a steel structure, and what's the typical diameter of this?
So like those are about 4 inches.
About 4 inches. So, and it's actually only 2 over here and 2 over there, not 4 sets. It's
Correct.
actually 4. So we're talking about 4-inch pieces that are actually going to be going into the
Helical piles.
Yeah, and there's not going to be an issue of the fact that there's a 1.5 foot of grade change that happens beyond that.
Nope.
Well, that kind of clarifies a little bit on that.
Yeah, Mitch, you had some questions, I think, on the first iteration, elevation and things. Are you okay now with this, what it is now?
Well, we've had
as
some
proposed?
discussions as far as constructability on some of the, looking at the way the contours kind of indicate like little bump outs in the elevation where it's really needs to be smoothed out. And Josh and I have had some conversations and I've also informed Suzanne on that as well. So I'll probably be going out with her when she does her COs for the permits to just make sure that it is graded as per we discussed.
Okay.
And my other concerns were just making sure that it actually fit, and now we actually have plans that show that.
It does fit, yeah. All right, do we want to go to the MOU next?
So,
And just, part of the DRB requirement was that you guys are okay with us doing that fence bump out?
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the MOU and then, yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
so, what is shown in red are the track changes that Mitch and I made. So rather than parcel, because it's in parcel, just an area of land.
Have you guys had a chance to look at these? Okay.
No, we
And
just.
I don't have the authority to approve this anyway.
Right.
Okay,
but
yeah,
this is
yeah,
something
yeah.
I'll-
But you're
Right.
bringing back to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll bring it
this-
back and
this
definitely
wasn't-
hear your, and that doesn't seem like it's gonna be too heavy of a lift
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah, there were still more board meetings that you guys had to have this looked at.
And just the MOU and the DRB approval, those are two separate creatures, The DRB didn't say anything about an MOU.
Right,
They just want-
right.
So I just want to
This is
separate.
just the town, yeah.
Okay.
So again, parcel, area of land. And then we added, whereas the district is aware of the ongoing environmental work adjacent to the DOC on the Beecher Brook floodplain restoration area. And just for that awareness to have that in.
So what's the remainder of that sentence or paragraph?
Which one?
Just the one you just
This
added?
one? This is it, because then you end it with and then it goes to the next whereas.
Okay.
It's a whereas.
I got you. I
Yeah.
got you. It's a list, okay.
The next,
And whereas the sky is blue and
yes.
winter is
All the
coming.
legalese. And then the district shall not be obligated to provide any capital repairs or replacements if needed, is how it was. We did, unless damage is caused by the district. And then on to that last sentence, any such capital repairs shall be at the cost and expense of Hinesburg. We added to that, unless damage is caused by activities or actions of the district.
Yeah.
So that's
not.
Seems, yeah, that's probably the only one that, if there's any meat on the bone at all, that might be it, but.
Right.
We're both on the hook for just taking care of the property. And
Yeah.
We want to be a good neighbor, so
Right.
we understand.
And those were the only changes that we discussed.
All
You
right,
guys have other
I'd make
things?
a proposal, we could go at this two ways, if the board wants to, accept the MOU and any other modifications that Renee sees necessary and give her the authority to approve this. So they, who knows, they may come back and say, oh, we want to change the wording a little bit more. But if if you're okay with it, on however it turns out, it seems like most of it's there, we'll write down the last couple percentage points. Then I'll give you, so we can keep the ball rolling.
One statement I do want to make while you're here is, one thing we talked about what was really important was the communication piece. And as all of these were going on, we haven't quite gotten to the good communication piece, so we really need to, for the completion of this construction project, we need to have good communication from CSWD and in the future, just for as partners of the DOC. So,
Understood.
yeah,
And-
I just
and
want to
just-
reiterate that importance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well understood.
All right, thank
I
you.
think
Very reasonable.
it's been challenging, for whatever reasons,
Right.
it's been challenging.
Yeah.
So I could make a motion to accept the MOU, and instruct Renee as town administrator to make any other modifications, appropriate, and leave it as that,
I would second that motion.
okay?
And sign it?
And sign it, yes. For the town, which I think we had already talked about before in previous times. So, any more discussion on that? Seems acceptable. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, so we've got 5 votes, yes. So the next thing is the bump out and the added land. We knew this was coming. We saw there's been several iterations of it. I am okay with it. It doesn't sound like there's anything that's, an impact we're concerned about the stormwater project there, certainly. It sounds like you've absorbed a little of that stormwater system and saying, hey, if we absorb a little bit, we're responsible for maintaining it. It's within our fenced area. So I think one way we could go forward with this too, is, if you're all right, is to, again, give you, authority to, that what we see seems acceptable. There may be some more discussions on things, but that we're okay with moving forward. If anything needs to be tweaked, again, to give you the authority to tweak it and keep this process moving forward. So allow the additional space.
Just have one other question. The fence itself, is that going to be like a chain link fence?
Yep.
And how much on, so I'm just thinking as far as water being able to, because where you're actually placing the fence, there is going to be water that is going to be coming around it. Is that going to be restrictive or very restrictive, or is it just basically?
Standard chain link without a bottom plate to it. It's going to be
So if there's no bottom plate for
yeah,
that,
yeah, it'll flow through.
Okay. Just wanted some clarification on that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm concerned about the effect on the Beecher Brook floodplain restoration. So I didn't hear that, I can't remember the lady's name.
Jessica Luisos.
Thank you. I didn't hear that she said, oh yeah, this is fine. I heard that she said, well, I'm not really sure.
Because she couldn't tell from that plan.
Right.
I think, so that's something that I'm gonna have her work with Josh, and they'll look at it together to make, just to ensure there isn't, doesn't impact any of the stormwater features on our property.
Right, so I'm not really comfortable approving it until I hear that she thinks it's fine.
Right.
I'm
So-
comfortable saying that Renee has the authority.
Okay.
Because I trust Renee to follow
Right.
through on that.
Right.
I don't know how that could possibly impact the stormwater. That's on the northwest corner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
The
disconnected.
brook
It
is
goes-
way over here,
to the right and down.
way over to the right and down.
It leads to a stormwater pond, which is down south and over.
No, we're talking about
But
the
the other
fence along the
storm-
southern edge
Yeah.
and how that
Yeah.
impacts, nothing to do
We
with the
just
solar
did have a
panel area.
lot of water coming through Hinesburg a few weeks ago, and that floodplain place had a lot of water.
Yeah.
And it
We've got
moved the way it
before and
was
after pictures.
supposed to, and I just wouldn't, I'm not an expert on how these things
We
work.
have their plans, they have, and looked at our plans, and Jessica's basically said there's no conflicts.
So
Well,
I think
that's
Renee,
not what I heard,
so I
so-
think Renee will
You had a feeling when you
review
said
that,
that.
continue to
Yeah.
review that with her.
Yeah, yeah.
And my motion doesn't say, it says we're allowing Renee to make the final decision that whatever, if they come back and say we need to make a slight change, and Josh and his team say, okay, we'll make that slight change,
Yep.
then we can move forward.
So here is Jessica's email that she sent right at 6:34. It is hard to tell from the plan if they changed the swale contours. If they didn't, it should be okay from a stormwater perspective. I have not had any update from CSWD on the stormwater elements they are building. I should look at those on your behalf before they finish construction to make sure that they meet your operational permit.
We didn't, we physically did not change any of the contours that we all met out for. Like what we've proposed here, this fence will not change any of the contours. It's posts with a chain link. So the contours have not and will not be affected. And as Aaron indicated, we're not putting a concrete pad down. We're sticking it into the ground. So again, it doesn't matter what the contours look like. We just have to meet the depth that the piles need to go to support the solar panel. So
Jessica just needs to confirm that as part of our stormwater permit.
Yeah, I think you're all doing really good things, and
Absolutely.
I'm thrilled you're putting in the solar panels, so I don't want to give the impression that I want to
Right.
stop
Understood.
that or get in the way of it. I just, as I said before, I really want communication, and because the stormwater restoration plan is also a really good thing, and the garage is a really good thing, I want them all to work cohesively together.
I agree.
A lot of what Jessica would have to know is some of the questions I asked with the, what is that fence like and what is the bottom? And now that can be communicated to Jessica.
Okay, good.
Again, just for clarity, because we are on a really tight weather schedule at this point, and if we have to pause for anything, it's not that we don't have a little wiggle room, but we might have to kick this to the spring to open. Now we want to get it right, and we don't want to put anything in that nobody agrees with. But just in the event that, these meetings will potentially push us to the spring to open. So I
Right.
want,
So
I want to be very
think-
transparent about that.
I think, so this motion says we're allowing Renee to continue, she's the closest to it anyways, so that we don't have to wait 2 more
Right.
weeks for a select board meeting.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's,
And Jessica's is just a simple formality. You can do that on the phone or meet
Oh.
with her tomorrow.
Okay,
It's a
I'll call
very,
her tomorrow.
a very easy.
Great. If that, as long as we'll
Yes.
schedule a meeting and I'll go out, so,
No,
and I know
I
Jessica.
think that's an easy one that we
Great.
can, I just
Okay.
want, I need confirmation
Yep.
from her that
I'll
she's
give her a
good.
call in the morning.
Yep.
Then that's simple. That's not.
Yeah, and so these were the steps needed in order to, for me to be able to sign their after-the-fact building permit to, for the construction that started, and they hadn't done that step, so we just needed to make sure the MOU is in place, that we've had this discussion about the solar array and the fence placement, and then I can issue that.
Great, thank you.
okay. So I'll, again, make that same motion to, that it appears like we're able to move forward. We'll ask Renee to represent the select board and approve for the select board the final fence layout and confirm with stormwater that there's no impacts to the stormwater plan.
The Beecher Brook
Yeah.
Stormwater Restoration Plan.
And I would suggest you just make it as a little more, because it's not only the Beecher Brook project you want to make sure, but that the way that this site has been put together in the stormwater system for the maintenance garage and the CSWD, that should not have any interference as well. And that's what hopefully Jessica will be able to.
So I'll say stormwater, so she's gonna help us with
Yes.
that, yeah. Rather than just the Beecher Brook.
Yeah, good.
Val, did you actually get that?
Yeah.
All right,
And I just want full transparency and understanding. I'm gonna call Jessica tomorrow, and if she says, hey, you know what, Josh, yes, everything we just discussed sounds great. If that's the direction we go in, then she'll send you an email.
And she'll send me an email to
We're gonna
confirm.
email back, and we'll just keep chugging along, and we'll try and get this thing constructed by the end of next month. So,
And I
That sounds
appreciate
really
you,
good.
I appreciate you pushing, Josh,
We're
to
hustling.
get it
Yeah,
finished.
yeah.
The whole town's just
I know.
waiting for
We're
that.
Hoping once we get it constructed, we'll have a
you
couple
should
of
see the
tweaks.
pile of trash in my garage.
Every time I go out to the site, I'll stop at Lampman's, and it's like they'll see the CSWD, and they're like, "When you guys come back?"
Yeah.
I can tell there's excitement, so we're excited to get in.
Yeah,
And
it
you
looks
have-
good.
Absolutely.
I mean, the whole site is, particularly with the Beecher Brook, that just is really ideal. So I made a motion,
I'll second it.
all right. Any more discussion? You're okay?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, like I
All
said.
those in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye. Jeff?
Yeah, I said aye.
Okay, so we
So
got
that
five
good
there.
communication is
All
gonna be
right,
really key
Josh,
for
thanks.
all the way. I think we can do this.
Perfect. I
Good job
appreciate
with
it.
that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you, Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch, thank you. All right. Town Administrator Report.
All right, let's get to,
You had it in there.
yeah, let me get this opened up. We're short-staffed in the highway department due to recent vacancy and an employee that's out on medical leave, so only 2 people that are, plowing those roads. Fortunately, able to move around staff again,
Yes,
speaking to how
right.
we're moving around. Pulled John from the utilities department, and he has stepped up. He has a CDL. Both Mike and Dominic took him out one day just to, check out. He's been it's been a very easy transition, so. Mike sung him praises. It's such a help to be able to have that, so. And Eric and Bart have made some adjustments just to cover things for their part, so, it speaks to how our staff operates. We help each other out, and that also is how our community operates too, and so the partnerships we talked about tonight with our winter sidewalk maintenance is the same. Significant thank you to the road crew for the long hours they've spent working to keep our roads safe in these early storms. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
particularly the big
starting
Halloween
early,
storm,
right?
yeah.
So the Halloween storm, and then also we've had
Tuesday storms.
Tuesday storm. Yeah, we had a Thursday or Friday storm. So those, big thank you to that, and to John for helping out. Met with Charlotte Rescue, Marilee and I did, just to assist them in fine-tuning their budget for providing either a temporary or a long-term ambulance transport service to a portion of Hinesburg and St. George. So we talked about in the past, you know, we're going to have a budget for us to operate our own ambulance transport service, but also at the same time, we talked about the two likely collaborations of Richmond Rescue and Charlotte Rescue could be splitting the difference, you know, and having 116 be the sort of the division. However, after we met with Charlotte, they really would like to also be CVU as well, so they would go up Mechanicsville Road and CVU Road in addition. Their thought was ideally for patient care, the best scenario would be to have 4 different communities doing one segment of quadrants of Hinesburg. But, you know, in our conversations with Williston and Shelburne, they really weren't interested in doing any sort of a long-term, anything outside of the mutual aid. So those would be the 2 likely candidates for that option. So we're just trying to get them to be able to provide a good budget for us, and Richmond has, and then our consultant gave a lot of information to our consultant. He's working on finalizing our own ambulance transport budget, so that you'll have that back on your agenda hopefully in December at some point.
Okay, great.
To have your options.
So, can I add a few things?
Absolutely.
So, they had 4 people gathered to meet with us, and one was the head of the organization, and another was the business manager.
This is Charlotte.
Yes.
Charlotte, yeah. And Dick St. George, who's the head of the fire, and then Rob, I can't remember.
Rob Nolan.
Who's the head of the rescue. So it was very helpful. They had really good questions, and the finances. It was very helpful what they said about the finances. And they also, one of the things they said, which really everybody has said, is that even though we have, I think, a remarkably robust volunteer service here in Hinesburg, that it's going to be hard to maintain that. Even Al says that over time. They also said that in terms of patient care, for the best patient care, the best time, obviously, for the people in Hinesburg to be served by an ambulance is if we have our own ambulance. That's how people will get the ambulance the fastest.
So one thing, I think all of them are interested in Hinesburg's conversation because it has an impact, into the other communities. So they just want to understand what we're doing, because in each of the communities, their ambulances are pulled to different places.
Yeah,
and so
sure.
when that ambulance is out serving, then their community is short. And so the more that they have to stretch their area has an impact. So everyone wants to be a partner. Everyone wants to, be part of the conversation. It has been very helpful. And we've learned a lot over the course of it. But, there's still more work to be done, but just fine-tuning these budgets so that we have good options to look at.
And another interesting difference between Charlotte and Hinesburg. Charlotte the residents want an ambulance, and they're willing to pay for it. So it does cost more for the citizens there, but it's valuable to them. They have the lowest call volume of any of the area ambulances. And financially, it might make sense for them not to have an ambulance, but the residents in Charlotte like to have it there, so they're willing to shoulder that cost. What that cost will be if we have an ambulance in Hinesburg, I think that's the last piece that Renee and I need to try to get an accurate figure on.
I think the household income in Charlotte is somewhat more than Hinesburg.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that.
Well,
They don't have
so,
a police force.
yeah,
here.
right. Yeah. So
Yeah,
they've gone a different route.
One of the people said that they would rather than volunteer, they would rather write a check, the residents in Charlotte.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, and then
Health
time has been
insurance.
spent with health
Yeah.
insurance, and then meeting with folks about the draft sidewalk policy.
Yeah.
I've got, in terms of the sidewalk, I did reach out to Andrea to see if they could get a volunteer group to help trim the trees, because that's been an issue. There's branches that are hanging low along the sidewalk and on the edges, so I asked Bart for what is the distance he needs. So any branch that hangs lower than 7.5 feet, he's asking if they can trim, and then within 3 feet of each side of the sidewalk. So there's a group that's gonna start meeting tomorrow afternoon, and I, asked Bart to check in with them at first so he can identify what are the highest priorities, areas, and there'll be some working on Thursday and some on Friday, that know a lot about trees and can do it in a good manner and take care of that for us. So it was a big thank you to that group as well. Safety Committee continues working with the departments to update their V.S.A.-related programs and policies. So Joy's been meeting with individual department heads and kind of looking at what ones pertain to them, and then we're using templates from V.S.A. and VLCT to get those in place and in a binder and ready to go, so that we can have Project WorkSafe come and do another evaluation. Substantial completion meeting for the Village North Sidewalk is tomorrow at 7 a.m.
Great.
Again, the open positions, highway maintainer is a full-time position. So we've got ads out all over for that, and we've already received some applications. Winter sidewalk maintainer has been an open one for a long time. We did have someone last year, in the last 2 years, but then before that, we've continued to have to fill in with staff. So we really, if there's anyone out there that has some time during the winter months that could be on call, we would really appreciate hearing from you. So that's a seasonal part-time position. FEMA's going to be visiting private properties tomorrow afternoon. So they're doing Chittenden County, Addison County, Lamoille County. And tomorrow afternoon is when there'll be a group that'll be here in Hinesburg. So they sent us an email, and the people who had called 211, they had listed on there. There was someone that wasn't listed on there that had reached out to me, so I contacted them, added that to the list, so that they'll be visiting that property tomorrow afternoon too. So we haven't met the threshold for Chittenden County yet, so hopefully, by going to these individual
then you go
property
to the
damage,
private
then you
owners
go to the
and
private
add that
owners
up.
and
I
see
see.
if that gets to the threshold.
Yeah.
Is that a change?
As far as
Private owners?
no, I remember years ago when there was a FEMA declaration that did go into the private owners
I don't
as well.
remember that.
That was years ago, but yeah. That's all I have.
Okay, great. Again, thank you for, taking on not only all the work you do, but initiatives like the insurance, the health insurance and whatnot, so.
Actually, Joy might want to add a tidbit about just the surveys, the income surveys, and we don't have an update of where we're at this week, but just the importance of.
We do have an update.
Did he do it?
Yeah, we are at 114 surveys to come in, whether they're complete, we're not
Right.
sure.
Right.
That's about 62% of the mark we need to reach of 185. We will continue to push and request people to do surveys that were sent out. If they need another survey, please contact me. If they, for some reason, recycled it or misplaced it, Phil did put something on Front Porch Forum. We will continue to
We could
reach out
try
to
that
people.
again, and maybe there's somewhere else we could.
Well, we could remind people on our website. We can't put it on our website, but we could remind people that way. We could also put it on our Facebook page as a reminder. We do have some followers on our Facebook page.
Would it be worthwhile to send out another copy, even though there'd be some cost there?
We can't send a copy because they are keeping track of the survey
Yeah.
survey universe. So that wouldn't work as well.
I think another
You don't want
post on Front Porch Forum would be a good idea. I just read the
Yeah.
one you put on. You could make it shorter, maybe a
Yeah.
couple of happy faces on it.
So,
Yeah,
and then next step, once that doesn't happen, then the consultant will be going door to door
Okay.
too. So just
All right.
for those that haven't responded,
and
because they
there
have a
was a-
list of who.
A good question from Andrea saying, if you've got apartment buildings.
Yeah, the answer to that question is there are some apartment buildings that people do not get their water bills or their wastewater bills. They go to the landlord. We reached out to all those landlords
Okay,
and got names and matched names with addresses. Where we were unsuccessful in hearing back, we actually did send a few that said occupant, but mostly we went door to door and hand delivered.
okay. Because it's good to hit up those folks too.
Oh, we
because
did,
their
yeah.
income, may be helpful.
We had to make sure that we
Yeah, we
had
had to
everybody.
Great,
check all the
that's great.
boxes.
Yeah, all right, good. So it's pretty thorough.
Put a
And-
reminder on the sandwich board out front.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea.
You know, it's not
That's
a
not a
bad
bad
idea.
idea.
A lot of people see it actually.
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
yeah,
I
there you
don't need to
go.
be reminded about
Fill
tax
out-
day any longer.
Yeah, right.
That's a good point,
Fill out
yeah.
your survey, maybe
Thank
save
you.
money.
Good idea.
So, yeah, that's my feedback. So I've spoken with a few people, right? That's my question. Hey, did you get the income survey? And, and most of them are like, yeah, we're not coming, we just threw it out. And then I explained to them what it was about, and then they're like, oh. So I think it's an education a little bit, right? And I'm going to give you names. But there's an education a little bit that people didn't quite understand what it was for. They're just like, why do you
Right.
want this personal information? No, and,
I
without
think I
really
could-
understanding what it's about.
I could put out another little shorter one, and maybe I could put out, I forget what the number is on the slide, but it was like $2 million or something, whatever it was. I could say, this is the potential savings.
Yeah.
Something,
yeah.
So, and spread $2 million among all the users.
Yeah, and again,
That's how
those
much-
questions are not by the town of Hinesburg. That's a
Right.
requirement of
Right.
the USDA of how it is. But there are ones that are optional, and so those questions that are listed, is it 7 through 10?
Yeah, page 2, 7 through 10. But you do need to send both pages back, please, even
Right.
if you choose not to answer page 2.
The other questions are needed, but 7 through 10 are optional, but you still return both pages.
I'll talk with you, get a little more detail. If you've got some recommendations, I'll do another one if we think it's worthwhile. I'm happy to do it.
So what's the answer if they've thrown it out already?
They can contact us and get
Contact
another
me,
copy.
and I will give it to them, and we will record their name. Thank you.
All right, that's it.
All right, Select Board Forum.
Thank you for putting the post on.
I got a couple things. One is I'm on the Green Mountain Transit Board. I think we should vote me in again. It doesn't show. I should have done it in June. So maybe the next meeting we can do that.
You kind of
And
rogue.
I'll reach out to the alternate.
Richard
No.
Watts or Carla?
Carla.
Carla.
She's listed as the alternate. Carla. Saturday, the United Church has their bazaar. It's been going on for generations, I think. Somebody said, that as a little kid, and she's not little kid anymore, that as a little kid, so it's been there for, who knows, 50 years, more than 50 years. Yeah, maybe 100 years, who knows.
Some of the original items are still for sale.
You'll get yours. No, but it's great if you have small kids and you give them a few bucks and they can find some things. Plus, there's lunch and all that. All right, and then just to let people know, so my company maintains the town trackers, and we've got a couple that are kind of leaning and a couple that are spinning because it's now. It was a wet area when it started. Now it's a very wet area. So I've talked to Mike a little bit about, we want to go in and do a little work, and Mike could use some gravel, and maybe we can solidify them. And I think maybe one of the things we need to do is improve the drainage around them so that they're not sitting in the water all the time, which originally they weren't. So we're working on that. So to make sure they're working, they're just, starting to, it's kind of mucky. That's it for me. Does anybody else have anything else? Minutes from November 6th. We need a motion. That's you.
the minutes of November 6th.
As amended.
As amended, I'll second it.
All right, got that. Mary Lee?
I did have several things. So on the first page, discuss zoning regulation revision, second paragraph, second
You liked it?
sentence, yes, I wanted a D there. And then there were some sentences
Did you get that? So, let's be, if you're specific, you go down to the discuss zoning, the second paragraph, the second sentence.
merrily liked with a D Alex's statement of robust improvements. Alex will include that language. And then the next two sentences I didn't understand. For the off-site allowance, should there be a comma? Make it possible to be a partnership with the town and easier to work with another property owner. So if there's a comma after allowance, then I understand that. To clearly define the fund connected to the contribution alternative, I don't know what that means.
That was the issue where it was, you have to, if you're not doing the work, you gotta provide X amount per square foot. And you brought up, that seemed like a lot, but then it was like, no, it's only the square foot of the amount that you're supposed to provide. So that just clarified where that contribution alternative, where the square footage of that is. It's not the entire project, it's just the amount allocated for public space.
Actually, that wasn't what I was referring to, Phil.
Okay,
You had asked Alex to come up with, to define the fund.
oh,
for where-
yes,
If you were doing, contributing money instead of building a park or building it somewhere else.
define what the fund could be used for.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And it was called the
So is that
it was called the
Contribution alternative.
contribution alternative.
Yeah, okay, now I remember.
This is a
So,
fragment. So that's why it's-
yeah, maybe
Yes,
we could,
that's
that
right,
could be.
that's right. So do you have any suggestions on how to make it not a fragment?
I think it defined
Yeah.
the town, how that fund line, would be used, I guess.
Yeah,
Could be
something
used.
for the purpose of clearly defining the fund. In an effort to clearly define the fund connection to the contribution already, blah, 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 something like that.
Do you have a suggestion, Val?
I like what Aaron just said,
Yeah.
purpose of clearly defining the fund.
Okay, great. Okay, there were a few other, on the next page, in the middle of the page, consider approving contract amendment number 1 for construction inspection services, Village North. Second paragraph, second sentence, Renee will be checking with the state to find out if this falls into the contingency amount. The substantial completion walkthrough this Friday.
Is this, yeah.
Oh, will be, okay.
Which there was a storm and it had to be changed. And
And of course, through is
rescheduled
Walk
again.
through, so it's
it's a
after.
real word, not a.
Yeah, no, I don't have any problem with that, it's just, I need to understand what it's saying. I guess that's it.
All right, any others? So you're all right with that, Val?
Yep.
All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so that passed. What's next on our
Probably
agenda? Must be
warrants
warrants,
and
right?
Usually it's payroll and warrants.
Yeah, consider approving the warrants.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrants to include payroll as presented by the clerk, which I don't see them right
Oh, I
here,
didn't
but-
get them.
but-
They were signed.
Yeah, we did it
but
last
they're in
week.
there, yeah.
We can grab them.
Second for
Yeah.
you, Aaron.
All right. There were no issues, all those?
It was just payroll this past week.
Yes,
There
that's
was
right,
no-
yeah,
there was no
you're right,
constable.
yeah.
Because she was busy with tax.
It's collecting the money.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So should
Counting
I
it.
change that to just payroll warrants?
Yeah, make it just payroll and state there were no warrants, there are, whatever it's called.
Accounts.
Yeah,
Payable.
yeah,
Accounts payable.
accounts
yeah.
payable. There's no accounts payable this week, just payroll.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye?
Aye, so that passed. We do not need to go into executive session. I think we're all set. Ken, I think that might be it. Is there a motion to adjourn? Tom says yes.
I'll second it if you like.
Seconded by Aaron. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.